Chapter 259. Night gradually fell. No matter how hard life became, the days had to go on. After complaining to the elders, the citizens gradually dispersed, indicating that it was time for this routine meeting to end. Sorry to keep you waiting. After taking off the church uniform, Barnilla apologized to Ray Minkai, who had been waiting by the side. No, this is also a way of sightseeing. Before I came here, I heard that under the protection of the church, Geraldine was able to achieve freedom and peace for thousands of years. From the looks of it, this legend is true. Ray Minkai waved his hand, indicating that he didn't care about Barnilla's attitude. However, Ray Minkai's words made Barnilla's face turn gloomy. Let's go. Kai, it's getting late. If you don't have a place to rest, you can come to our house. This invitation, for Ray Minkai, was undoubtedly an opportunity that he couldn't ask for more. Ray Minkai looked around and acted like he was unfamiliar with this place, but in fact, he was really unfamiliar with this place. Then he slowly nodded. Then I'll have to bother you. Barnilla. Haha, don't say that. Come on. Today is also a good day. After all, our long-lost friend is back. Barnilla laughed, but he didn't reach out to pat Ray Minkai's shoulder, because the little white cat sitting on Ray Minkai's shoulder once again popped out its claws. If he were to slap her like this, there might be a few more bloody scars on her body. This little cat is really not close to people, Barnilla muttered, then looked around. After confirming that there were no other pedestrians nearby, he suddenly asked Lay Minkai in a low voice, Lay Minkai, what's going on? That Kai. Regarding the battle during the day, are you sure you shot down all the helicopters? I'm sure. Ray Minkai looked at Barnilla strangely. That's good. However, this shouldn't be hidden for long. After all, the surroundings of Geraldine are already filled with Black Lightning Zats. Kai, for you to come to Geraldine at this time, I'm afraid you might be implicated. Barnilla gradually showed a worried expression. Danger? If I was afraid of danger, I wouldn't have taken action in the desert. Barnilla, to be honest, I came to Geraldine to investigate some things. Ray Minkai looked at the worried Barnilla, thought for a while, and decided to tell him part of the truth. Investigation? Kai, what do you want to do? Hearing Lay Minkai mention the word investigation, Barnilla's expression became serious and even a little wary. This was inevitable. Jerfold's current situation was nothing more than the result of the struggle between the declining church and a mastermind behind the Black Lightning Brigade. However, as time passed, the weaker church was no longer able to fight against the Black Lightning's mastermind. Moreover, during this period of time, under Gashman's bewitchment, more and more young people who were dissatisfied with the current situation and the interference of external forces in Geraldine, even affecting the daily operations of Geraldine and the safety of the citizens, gathered together and tried to fight for a bright future for Geraldine through violent means. Besode of Geru Gashman. He's the target of my investigation. What? Gashman? When Ray Minkai said the name slowly, Barnilla was shocked. One had to know that Gashman was one of the leaders of the new generation in Jerf's church, who was at the peak of his power. Countless young people with great ambitions were influenced by the new teachings that he published and kept gathering around him. With such an existence, even if the elders were doubtful and afraid of Gashman's actions, they did not dare to show it too obviously and cause a rift with the new generation of disciples. Who the hell are you? Ray Minkai. Barnilla took a few steps back and looked at Ray Minkai cautiously. From his point of view, Ray Minkai had become an unstable factor. It was very likely that he would cause Geraldine's situation to be completely overturned. Don't be so nervous. Barnilla, I don't have any ill intentions towards Geraldine. My target is just Gashman and the Black Lightning Brigade outside. As he spoke, Ray Minkai gestured with an anti-material weapon. Do you think that an ordinary person can get an anti-material weapon that is made against that? Barnilla frowned and looked at Ray Minkai for a while. Finally, he let out a self-mocking laugh. Hey, from what I see, you're not an ordinary person. Forget it. Geraldine is already like this. I'm not afraid of a stranger like you. Come on, it's getting late. We can't let Kate Konal wait for us for too long. Thank you very much. Why are you thanking me? You deserve it. Kai. The full moon was in the sky, and the sky was full of stars. Numerous torches lit up the courtyard, making it exceptionally bright. Under the flickering light of the fire, the food placed on the table appeared particularly tempting. However, what caught Lei Mingkai's attention was the blue-haired man who sat silently across the table with a glass of red wine in his left hand. He had yet to take a sip of it. Ziliga Lei Mingkai was led by Vanilla to their home. When he was called to the dining table, he saw that Kiligu had been sitting there for a long time without saying a word. As he looked around, Lei Mingkai realized that the one who was talking loudly was the old man with white hair and beard. There was also a middle-aged woman who was standing beside the table with a smile on her face. They were Bruce Scott, who became old in the past 30 years, and Kei Kona, who had a bunch of children with Barnilla. The reunion of former comrades didn't seem to be a moving scene, but the fundamental reason for this was that Kiligu wasn't good at expressing his emotions. All right, why did this young man come to Jelf? To sell goods? Or to sightsee? After a full meal, Old Man got suddenly changed the topic of reminiscing about the past to Lei Mingkai. I'm just sightseeing for now. Lei Mingkai raised his wine glass and gave a toast to Old Man God. Sightseeing? Really sightseeing? Old Man God was stunned for a moment. Then he laughed out loud. Ha ha, you really didn't pick the right time. Now is not a good time to sightsee in Geraldine. You know, you can't even come in now. Yes, if you and Ziligu had not saved Sylvia together, I'm afraid we would have lost a daughter. Keikona also sighed along with God's words. Even so, because of this, some of the important members of the church were dissatisfied with Ziligu and Guy destroying the Black Lightning Brigade's at. From their point of view, this has undoubtedly stimulated the Black Lightning Brigade's nerves. I'm afraid we will have to face the Black Lightning Brigade's retaliation. Vanilla put down his wine glass and thought about the conversation he had with the elders during the day during the regular meeting. He was worried. One had to know that the good days they had now were the fruits of their hard work over the past 30 years. No one would be willing to see their good days go down the drain just like that. You, Vanilla. Just when Keikona was dissatisfied with Vanilla's words, Lei Mingkai suddenly slammed his wine glass on the table and made a loud noise. No, Vanilla, you're not wrong. The Black Lightning Brigade will launch an attack tomorrow morning. When Lei Mingkai said this, his gaze was fixed on Ziligu's calm face. Their reason is to let Geraldine be handed over to the murderer who attacked them in the desert. In other words, you and me. Kiligu silently glanced at Lei Mingkai, but he didn't say a single word, not even a single word. He only silently put down his wine cup, stood up, and turned to walk up the stairs. Ziligu's action stunned God, Vanilla, and Keikona. However, when they reacted, Keikona immediately turned to Lei Mingkai and attacked him fiercely. I said, "What are you talking about? How dare you boast so shamelessly?" Once Keikona opened her mouth, she attacked with words like a storm. Lei Mingkai almost couldn't handle it. Keikona, enough. Don't make things difficult for our guest. God silently took a puff of his cigarette and looked at Lei Mingkai. Brother, this old man has made a mistake. Also, Vanilla, are you hiding something as well? What? Vanilla, you're hiding something? Once God opened his mouth, Keikona let out a scream and grabbed Vanilla's neck. She shook him fiercely while launching a fierce verbal attack. That appearance made Lei Mingkai secretly sweat. At the same time, he secretly sighed. Luckily, Euphemia didn't come with them. Otherwise, she would have been led astray by Keikona. Stop it. I didn't mean to hide it. It's just that brother's goal can't be known by too many people. After Vanilla finally escaped from Keikona's evil clutches with great difficulty, he confirmed that his children weren't standing on the balcony while saying a name in a low voice. Gashman. Kai's goal is Gashman. Gashman. Keikona and Got were instantly shocked. Even the cigarette in Got's hand almost fell to the ground. Who exactly are you? Old Man Got asked subconsciously, but quickly denied himself. No matter who you are, it's no longer important. There's no way to avoid Jilf City. Vanilla, if brother needs anything, as long as it doesn't affect our safety, you can try your best to help. God took a deep look at Lei Mingkai, then got up and returned to the house. Vanilla, you better watch carefully. Also, put Put away your evil ideas. Obviously, Keikona had already listed Rei Minkai as one of the people she didn't welcome. However, due to the etiquette of receiving guests, she didn't make it obvious. In the end, Vanilla helplessly laughed bitterly. Kai, why are you doing this? Even if your goal is Gashman, there's no need to do this. Rei Minkai shook his head and looked towards Ziligu's room. At this time, even if Ziligu had returned, it was still dark. Vanilla, even if I didn't say this, do you think Ziligu wouldn't think this way? Before reuniting with you, Ziligu lost Fianna. What? Fianna's dead? In the dead of night, Vanilla was shocked by this shocking news. But soon, he understood why Ziligu would be alone in this desert. At this time, the white cat, State Zero, who had been lying on the table, suddenly raised its head and looked towards the starry sky. There, a meteor was quickly sweeping across the night sky, heading towards the deep starry sky. Fianna. That was Fianna's coffin in eternal slumber. Rei Minkai retracted his gaze and slowly said, "Since then, Ziligu began to think of himself as a jinx, bringing misfortune to the people around him. In the end, this was inevitable. Chili Gu Chiobi, the untouchable person, and the existence of supernatural abilities. These seemingly awe-inspiring reputations are like honey, attracting all the adventurers who are vainly trying to make a name for themselves. As long as Ziligu Chubby is alive, the battles in this world will continue to happen along with his survival." This was the truth. Vanilla, who had followed Ziligu in battle, knew that what Rei Minkai said was the undeniable truth. The man named Ziligu Chubby's life was probably only accompanied by battles. I'm afraid your target is not only Gashman, right? At this point, Vanilla had already guessed most of Rei Minkai's intentions. That's right. My target is not only Gashman, but also Ziligu Chubby. But Vanilla, don't worry. I have no ill intentions towards Ziligu or any of you. On the contrary, I may have a way to free Ziligu from the curse of eternal battle. However, Vanilla did not believe that Rei Minkai would have a way to free Ziligu from being entangled in battle until the moment of his death. Let's stop here for today. I hope everything you've said is true. The night became quiet. White Cat, who was looking up at the night sky, slowly lowered its head and looked at Rei Minkai, who was sitting on the chair. Kai, are you not going to rest? No, now is not the time. There are still people who are not asleep. Rei Minkai shook his head and looked at the room that was still shrouded in darkness. At the same time, in the depths of Golfi City, in the underground headquarters of the church's martial arts faction, which was growing in power day by day, Gashman, the ambitious man, was guarding in front of a strange instrument, silently waiting for news from the other side. While waiting, the time was long, but it was worth it. That was what Gashman thought when the words "ready" lit up on the screen above the instrument. Everything will welcome the moment of revolution tomorrow. Chapter 260. Late at night, a young man carrying a large luggage bag turned into a deserted alley from the middle of the street. He wanted to leave the city through the entrance of the sewer in the alley. Even though he saw his best friend, whom he had not seen for 30 years, he decided to leave the city secretly to avoid bringing trouble to his friend. However, just as he opened the sewer, a voice suddenly sounded. "Ziligu Chubby, are you leaving just like that?" This unfamiliar yet somewhat familiar voice made Ziligu turn around abruptly. He quickly hid in the shadows and put on a defensive posture. However, this posture made the person laugh bitterly. Then, a black shadow flashed across the sky and landed in Ziligu's hands. Ziligu caught the black shadow steadily. The moment he touched the cold and familiar appearance of the black shadow, he immediately recognized the origin of the black shadow. That was his gun. Not long ago, he should have thrown it away in the trash bin in his room at Vanilla's house. Ziligu, as a soldier, it's already a dereliction of duty to throw away your gun. As the voice sounded again, the face that appeared under the moonlight made Ziligu's expression soften slightly. Even though, from the outside, Ziligu's face was still cold and rigid. The person was not surprised by Ziligu's silence. After all, from what he knew, Ziragu should be like this. Ziragu Chubi, it's an honor to meet you. I am Ray Minkai. I believe we've already met at the dinner party at Vanilla's house. You don't have to treat me as an enemy. The person spread out his hands, indicating that he had no ill intentions, and introduced himself. It turned out that the person who came was Ray Minkai, who had been sitting in the courtyard, silently waiting for Ziragu to sneak out of Vanilla's house. After Ray Minkai noticed that Ziragu had left, he walked directly into Ziragu's room, took the gun that Ziragu had thrown away, and followed him all the way here. Ziragu looked at Ray Minkai, then looked at his lost and recovered spear. He nodded silently at Ray Minkai and prepared to leave. You're leaving just like that? Killagu. However, Killagu had only taken a few steps when he was once again stopped by Ray Minkai. This time, however, Killagu did not turn around. After pausing for a moment, he took another step forward and walked into the shadows of the sewers. He ignored Ray Minkai's shouts and disappeared into the darkness. "'Tis Kai, you failed. As expected, you're only suitable to deceive those little princesses sitting in the imperial palace. Sir Knight Chief." A white figure jumped down from the high wall and landed firmly on Ray Minkai's shoulder, not forgetting to mock Ray Minkai. In the face of his partner's mockery, Ray Minkai shrugged indifferently. "That's inevitable. If Killagu was interested in my suggestion the moment we met, then he wouldn't be encouraging me." The white figure was White Cat State Zero. That small head tilted over and sized up Ray Minkai. "What? You still have the confidence to meet him?" Although he hasn't spoken much, in my opinion, this type of human is the hardest to deal with. Intentionally or unintentionally, Ray Minkai glanced sideways at the sky that was already turning bright. Is that so? In my opinion, Killagu Chubby is the hardest to deal with. However, at certain times on certain matters, he is the easiest to deal with. As he spoke, Ray Minkai raised his hand and patted White Cat State Zero's head. "All right, the good karma has been formed. Next, what we need to do is to wait for the day to come. Let's go back and rest." Early morning. As the sun slowly rose, the desert was once again shrouded in scorching heat. On the sand dunes outside Jerfy City, there were black spectacled dogs painted all over. They were either piloting at-specific air cushion equipment, being transported by helicopters, or relying on their own gliding equipment. In groups, they quickly occupied the best position to attack Jerfy City. In an instant, a tense atmosphere filled the city gate of Jerfy City. The person in charge of the security knew that even if the alarm was raised, Jerfy City, without any military force, would not be able to mount a decent resistance. Boom! Just as the person in charge of the security was caught in a dilemma, the attack was launched. There was no warning. There was no attack signal. There were only the continuous roars of the 50mm anti-tank cannons called Dodd Vanguard cannons mounted on the left shoulder of the black spectacled dog, as well as the violent explosions of the cannons bombarding the city gate. Boom! 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 As the huge explosion blew up the city gate, it also startled the citizens who had just woken up from the quiet morning. As the tall smoke rose into the air, countless pieces of debris from the explosion of the city gate fell into the city. If it were not for the fact that it was early in the morning and there were fewer people going out, this wave of attack would have resulted in tragic casualties. It's coming. Standing on the hillside behind Barnilla's house, Ray Minkai looked at the city gate from afar, the thick smoke rising into the air. Even if he was not standing on the hillside, he could still see it clearly. Not to mention, behind the thick smoke, there were bursts of flames that lit up one after another. Attack! It was still going on. Even though Jerfy City gate had been destroyed, the black spectacled dogs entrenched outside Jerfy City seemed to feel that it was not enough. They were still firing cannons at the ruined city gate. TSK, what a waste. Lying on a big rock beside Ray Minkai, the White Cat State Zero's eyes showed a hint of sarcasm. Humans always like to do this. Although it looks powerful, the result is a waste of a lot of ammunition. Ray Minkai moved his gaze and looked at a hillside in the distance. There! An old man was holding a little lamb and looking at the city gate with Ray Minkai. Although the distance was too far and the appearance of the old man could not be seen clearly, it could be seen from his clothes that this old man was one of the elders who attended the gathering with Barnilla. State Zero, let's go. This city is probably going to give up resisting. When State White Cat Zero heard this, it immediately became spirited. Are they going to fight? No. Before that, we still need to go to a place. Hearing this, White Cat State Zero's eyes flashed and jumped onto Ray Minkai's shoulder. Where are we going? Yes, that place is a little suspicious. We have to go and find out. Moreover, in the next battle, we have to wait for the main character to appear before we can intervene. That's good. Let's go. The reason why White Cat State Zero became excited. It was because in the early hours of the morning, when it was secretly following Killigoo, it suddenly discovered that there seemed to be a strange yet familiar fluctuation somewhere in the city. This made White Cat State Zero very concerned. Therefore, after it told Ray Minkai also decided to take advantage of the time when Killigoo was still lazing around to find out what was going on. The roaring of the cannons had stopped. On the streets, people wearing the uniform of the Mathiru Church could be seen wandering around, constantly advising the citizens not to go out to avoid being attacked by the Black Lightning Brigade who entered the city to search. How sad. Ray Minkai stood in the shadows of the alley and glanced at the black that was proudly walking on the streets. It was okay if the city gate collapsed. It could be rebuilt. But if the people's hearts collapsed, it would be hard to save them. The church in this city would probably become even more destitute after today. It was no wonder that Gashman, an ambitious schemer, had almost succeeded. If it wasn't for Gashman's unfortunate encounter with Brother Incentive, this bug, retracting his gaze, Lei Minkai silently waited for the black bespectacled dog on the street to walk away before he turned around and left the alley. He quickly crossed the street and ran along another deserted alley toward the other side of Gulfy City. At the same time, with Killigoo and Ray Minkai both missing, the Barnilla family seemed to have fallen into a panic. What's going on? Why did Killigoo and Guy leave? Kiona stood in the empty room and couldn't believe her eyes. They probably don't want to implicate us. Killigoo's fate doesn't allow him to stay in one place for too long. And that little brother probably knows that his existence will bring us trouble. Old Man took a deep puff of his cigarette and looked out of the window. I'm afraid that they might be waiting somewhere in this city, preparing to solve the problem in front of them. But there's no need to leave without saying goodbye. The world is like this. Kiona. However, while Kiona and Old Man were lamenting about their fate, they didn't know that their son and grandson were hot-bloodedly searching around the city. Searching for the that was hidden by their father, Barnilla. Sordio carefully avoided the black-spectacled dog's patrol range and parked the car in a secluded area. He anxiously took out a map from under the driver's seat and flipped through it with a frown. However, no matter how he flipped through the map, he couldn't find the hidden Damn it, what the hell are Father and Sherfu doing to actually obstruct our great cause? It's obvious that we can't protect this city just by relying on those old farts. Suddenly, as Sordio let out an unwilling curse, a small stone flew out of nowhere and smashed into Sordio's head. Who is it? Sordio let out a miserable howl as he endured the pain and turned around. While he was cursing, he suddenly had a flash of inspiration. Right? There's still a place that hasn't been found. In his surprise, Sordio didn't even care who threw the stone at him and hurriedly drove back to his home. Kai, why did you remind this silly boy? In the dust raised by the car, White Cat State Zero expressed its puzzlement. The small stone just now was thrown by Ray Minkai, who just happened to walk here. No, I didn't remind him. I just casually threw a small stone. Ray Minkai curled his lips and continued to walk in the direction of the target. After walking for a short distance, Ray Minkai's footsteps suddenly stopped. White Cat State Zero jumped down from Ray Minkai's shoulder. With a few jumps, it jumped along the junk placed not far ahead and onto the roof. A few minutes later, White Cat State Zero returned to Ray Minkai's shoulder. There's a secret exit in front. There are 2 people guarding it. White Cat State Zero stretched out its paw and gestured. Just now, There was a person wearing the uniform of an important person who left with a few people from that exit. Important person? Ray Minkai's eyes flashed and then asked. Silver gray hair, long and narrow red phoenix eyes, and a man wearing a green robe with a huge emerald. According to White Cat State Zero's description, this important person was most likely Gashman who secretly planned everything. Without hesitation, Ray Minkai immediately started to act. With the help of White Cat State Zero, the two people guarding the exit couldn't stop Ray Minkai's advance at all. They didn't even have the chance to sound the alarm. After throwing the two unconscious people to a corner, White Cat State Zero took the lead and Ray Minkai followed behind. One person and one cat rushed into the secret passage. In the end, the situation inside surprised Ray Minkai. No one, other than the two guards guarding the door, there was no one inside. It was as if this was just a backup place. Over here, this situation where there was no one around did not confuse White Cat State Zero. White Cat State Zero nimbly wandered around the empty space that seemed to be at least a few hundred square meters, then raised its paw and pointed in a certain direction. Lei Minkai did as he was told and went forward to check. Sure enough, he found a mechanism. Kai, let me do it. With a flash of white light, the small and cute White Cat State Zero had turned into a mighty snow-white lion. Then why do you want me to find it? Ray Minkai asked in confusion as he made way. Unexpectedly, the snow-white lion only replied with a faint sentence. It's just that you look bored. Ray Minkai choked on the spot. When did State Zero become so cunning? The snow-white lion raised its paw and gently pressed on the mechanism. Kacha! With the sound of the mechanism being activated, a trace of aura that made the snow-white lion's hair stand up instantly spread out from the slowly opening stone crack. This is Fianna. In the burst of cold air that spread out along the stone crack, a translucent cylinder about 2 meters long and 90 centimeters wide appeared in front of Ray Minkai. Through the hazy glass, Ray Minkai seemed to be able to see a peaceful face sleeping peacefully. It was a face that was coquettish but also valiant and formidable. At first glance, the appearance of this face made Ray Minkai exclaim subconsciously, This is Fianna. Chapter 261. In the cold mist, the snow-white lion walked to the front of the translucent cylinder. The pair of huge pupils stared at the sleeping face in the coffin for a moment. Suddenly, it raised its right claw and slammed down on the coffin. The speed was so fast that even Ray Minkai, who was standing at the side, could not react. State Zero, stop. Before he could finish his sentence, Ray Minkai was shocked by the scene in front of him. When the snow-white lion's right claw slammed down, the coffin that should have had a hole in it actually shattered like glass. The moment countless spiderweb-like cracks spread out from the lion's claw, it shattered with a loud bang. Only colorful fragments scattered all over the sky. Fake. Looking at the colorful lights dancing in the sky, Lei Minkai's brows furrowed slightly. The coffin that appeared in front of him and the woman who looked very similar to Fianna were so real that it was impossible to imagine that the coffin and the woman were illusions that did not belong to this world. However, State Zero saw through it and smashed it into pieces with a swipe of his claw. State Zero, how'd you find out? Ray Minkai turned around and asked the white lion, who was also puzzled by the scene in front of him. State Zero shook his head slightly, then suddenly changed back into the white cat form and jumped onto Ray Minkai's shoulder. I don't know either. It's just an intuition. Intuition? Ray Minkai pondered for a while. If the illusion that was seen through by State Zero really had some kind of power, Gashman, who listed this place as a secret place, should have been affected in some way. No matter what, the secret investigation this time was not successful. It was just that in this secret place, he saw a broken illusion. If he really wanted to find out the true face of the light spot detected by the disc, he would probably have to ask Gashman face to face. Let's go. State Zero. It's getting late. Maybe it started to get lively outside. Jerfold spent the day in a state of anxiety and fear. Even though the citizens were prepared for the arrival of the Black Lightning Brigade, when they saw the black spectacled dogs wandering around their city as if there was no one there, and wantonly checking on suspicious people and places, endless fear shrouded the sky of the city. This scene had already infuriated the young people gathered under the Gashman banner. However, no matter how angry they were only made of flesh and blood. They could not fight against the black spectacled hounds that were equipped with excellent weapons and equipment. After all, they were not born out of countless people. That was Chi Li Gu Chiobi, the heaven-defying man. With the help of many like-minded brothers and sisters, Sordio, who rushed back home, finally found the place where Barnilla and Stivia hid the ad. However, Sordio rushed to its hiding place excitedly and pushed open the warehouse door to a gap big enough for an adult to enter. However, he was stopped by Sylvia. "No, Gashman." "Sylvia, you?" Looking at Sylvia, who was controlled by Gashman, who pushed open the warehouse door, Sordio, who did not have the time to cheer loudly for the hidden inside, was stunned. "Ha ha! Thank you, Brother Sordio. My brother. Thanks to you, we now have an excuse for the Black Lightning Brigade to intervene in Jerfold." Amidst Gashman's proud laughter, two black spectacled dogs slowly walked out from the side and stood behind Gashman. This scene, no matter how stupid Sordio was, he had already guessed the general situation. "Gashman, you deceived us." Gashman clearly saw the anger on Sordio's face. It was anger after discovering that he had been deceived. However, he was not ashamed. In fact, there was even a hint of pride in his heart. As expected, he still had his own ability. Even if he had failed in the selection of the Red Cardinal in the border area, he could still rely on his own ability to once again strive for a more powerful position in the upper echelons of society. As for this angry young man in front of him, he would just let him be his stepping stone. With that thought in mind, Gashman pushed Sylvia, who was under their control, in front of Sordio. When he saw Sordio hurriedly supporting Sylvia, Gashman laughed out loud. "So what if I deceived you? Our goal is to set foot on the peak of this world. For this, we need a stepping stone." Gashman's voice became louder and louder. "For this, you, Sordio, and the hot-blooded young people in this city will all be my stepping stones and sacrifices to the peak. Thank me, Sordio, because this honor can only be enjoyed by the young people of Jerfold City." As he spoke, Gashman's gaze went past Sordio and looked at the open door. His gaze was fervent as he looked at the green-painted spectacled dogs quietly parked in the warehouse. According to the model, although these green-painted spectacled dogs were famous at vehicles galloping on the battlefield, they were actually many generations behind. In a one-on-one situation, the black spectacled dog behind him could easily crush any green spectacled dog. It was due to this reason that Gashman repeatedly hinted to Sordio to purchase these ancient weapons that seemed powerful in the eyes of ordinary people, but were in fact antiques. "Go." After dealing with them, send out the signal to inform our men to enter the city. Gashman, who was confident in his victory, turned his head slightly and signaled the black spectacled dog behind him to reel in the net. Kacha! The bullet was loaded. The special adjustable camera of the black spectacled dog had already locked on to the GAT-22 heavy machine gun in its hand. It was terrified as it slowly raised the GAT-22 heavy machine gun in its hands. "Sylvia, run. I'll hold him back." Fear flooded Sordio like a tidal wave, but he clenched his teeth and forced himself to stay, trying to leave the hope of survival to Sylvia. However, with just his body of flesh and blood, it was impossible for him to resist the black spectacled dog's muzzle. "Kacha!" As if toying with Sordio and Sylvia, the black spectacled dog, standing on the right side of Gashman, suddenly pulled the bolt. The sudden noise caused Sordio's body to tense up. He suppressed his fear and stood in front of Defia to protect her. "How brave! But this is the last. Stop playing. Hurry up and finish the mission." Gashman's face gradually turned cold as he said coldly, "Bang!" The next moment, a gunshot was heard. However, it was not a bullet fired by the black spectacled dog. It was a gunshot from not far away. Then, the black-spectacled dog that teased Sordio and Sylvia with the sound of the bolt being pulled was suddenly engulfed by an explosion. Boom! In the flames, Sordio and Sylvia, who were shocked, discovered that the source of the explosion was the magazine of the machine gun in the black-spectacled dog's right hand. What's going on? The smoke had just risen. The flames had not dissipated yet. A series of mechanical roars suddenly sounded behind Sordio and Sylvia. Kacha! Bang! Another gunshot was heard. The difference was after this series of noises, the Ets behind Sordio and Sylvia were pushed to the ground. Then, a green-spectacled dog suddenly activated and rushed forward to block Sordio and Sylvia's path. Hum! 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 Under the roar of the moving wheel under the green Et's feet, the two seemingly arrogant black-spectacled dogs were forcefully pushed out of the warehouse door by the green-spectacled dog. They were pushed all the way to the open area in front of them, where there were dozens of stairs extending down. Da-da-da-da! Rumble. The green-spectacled dog's figure steadily slid down the stairs, compared to the two black-spectacled dogs that could only roll down the stairs. Gashman, who had already run to the side of the helicopter, gritted his teeth fiercely. He did not expect such a troublesome existence to appear at such a critical moment. However, since the Ets hidden in the warehouse had been activated, then there was an excuse for the Black Lightning to launch an all-out attack. Now, what Gashman had to do was to leave this place as soon as possible. However, just as Gashman was about to step onto the helicopter, a spark suddenly bloomed in front of his eyes without warning. At the same time, the unique sound of the bullet bouncing off the armor also reached Gashman's ears. Perhaps he did not react in time, or perhaps he had the mentality of a gambler. Gashman was still climbing toward the pilot's seat of the helicopter. Bang! This time, Gashman heard it clearly. No matter how intense the battle between the Ets below was, the gunshot and the sound of the bullet bouncing off the helicopter were so clear that Gashman suddenly felt a chill in his heart. Sniper! There's actually a sniper here. How is this possible? In order to save his life, no matter how unwilling Gashman was in his heart, he could only raise his hands high and slowly retreat from the side of the helicopter until he reached the bottom of the stairs. Boom! At this time, the sound of an explosion accompanied by a gust of wind whistled. The two black-spectacled dogs that Gashman brought with him were actually killed by that old antique machine in such a short time. How is this possible? What is the background of the person sitting inside? Gashman's eyes widened as he looked at the man in a red pressure suit who jumped down from the wounded green-spectacled dogs. Ziragachubi. Gashman. You should have heard of this name. While Gashman was still in shock at Zilagu's face, an unfamiliar voice confirmed Gashman's suspicions. How is this possible? Impossible. How could such an existence come here? He clearly, obviously. The more Gashman looked at Ziragu's face, the more panicked he became. He had already remembered the deeds of this man, Ziragachubi, the heaven-defying existence that could not be eliminated by the combined power of two empires actually appeared in front of him at this time and became his enemy. A trace of cold sweat quietly slid down. Tut! The sound of footsteps from top to bottom reached Gashman's ears. Now do you know how fearless your courage is? Gashman. Lei Minkai was amused as he watched Gashman's expression change from one of pride to one of horror after recognizing Zilagu. Who are you people? Why did you come to this city? Did those people from the border area send you here? Gashman, who was gradually falling into panic, almost blurted out words that even he could not control. Border area? Ray Minkai shook his head, raised the anti-material rifle in his hand, and knocked Gashman, who was scared out of his wits, unconscious. He then looked up at Ziragu, who was also looking at him, and waved his hand. Ziragu, I still have some use for this guy. Lend him to me for a while. Hearing this, Ziragu glanced at Gashman, then turned around and ran up the broken stairs, plunging into the warehouse. I'll lure those that's away and bring them to the desert. Before that, you guys hide as soon as possible. Desert? The other party has 250 ats. When Shurdaiwia heard that Ziragu was going to fight the Black Lightning Squadron alone, she immediately asked subconsciously, No. Sure Daiwiya, let Ziragu go. Later I'll follow. Ray Minkai casually threw the expensive anti-material weapon to Sordio, then opened his mouth to explain for Ziragu. Sure Daiwiya. There are only 250 ets outside. Kiligu has seen and participated in battles that were even bigger than this. He even became the leader of those battles. As Ray Minkai spoke, he observed Ziragu's reaction. After confirming that Ziragu did not mind that his experience was exposed by Ray Minkai began to add a little more information. Until Ziragu finished his preparations and drove the new green spectacled dog out without saying a word. Only then did Ray Minkai stop bragging about how he inspired Ziragu to kill everyone. I'll go help. Sordio opened his mouth, rushed out of the warehouse, jumped into the car, and followed behind Ziragu. Following closely behind was Ray Minkai, who picked up the unconscious Gashman. The battle was imminent. Ray Minkai had to get the information he wanted from Gashman in the shortest time possible. Half an hour later, Gashman, who had lost his life, was hanging on a remote cliff in Jerfy. Kai, I didn't expect that the thing we were looking for was not on the ground. At the edge of the cliff, State Zero, who had turned into a lion once again, looked up at the sky that was quietly covered in darkness. Yes, it's also because of this that it explains why the light spot is so fast that the disc almost couldn't capture its reaction. Ray Minkai held the disc in his hand, raised his head, and looked at the starry sky above his head. Among the stars, an extremely fast meteor quietly moved from the northeast to the northwest. At this moment, the light spot on the disc that had been staying at the edge of the screen also moved along with the meteor's movement. The truth was actually so simple. The thing that Ray Minkai and State Zero were looking for had always existed in this sky. Chapter 262. Chili Gu. In the dark, a small but exceptionally clear voice rang in Chili Gu's ears. Chili Gu, who was sitting in the cockpit of the bespectacled dog, opened his eyes abruptly to search for the source of the voice. However, what he saw in front of him was the cold machinery and the familiar narrow cockpit. An illusion? Chili Gu's expression did not change at all, but there was a ripple in his heart. Although the voice was small, he could tell who the owner of the voice was. Fianna, is it your soul that's calling? Boom! At this moment, an explosion suddenly rang out from outside the canyon. At the same time, the sounds of machinery operating amidst the explosions were transmitted to Kiligu's ears without missing a beat. The battle has begun? Chili Gu frowned slightly and immediately activated the hovercraft that had been arranged beforehand. He let the automatic program lead the hovercraft that was loaded with a large number of cargo containers to rush out of Jerfy. This was Chili Gu using the advantage of numbers brought by the hovercraft to confuse the enemy with a charging posture so that he could rush into the enemy's formation and kill in all directions. However, from the continuous sounds of explosions, it seemed that someone had already taken a step ahead of him and launched an attack on the enemies surrounding Jerfy. In fact, the following development also confirmed Chili Gu's guess. However, when the 10 hovercraft rushed into the desert from the broken gate in a formation of geese, Chili Gu, who was sitting in the cockpit, was immediately attracted by the white figure that shuttled through the rain of bullets. That's at Chili Gu, who was puzzled, did not recognize the true identity of the white figure that was shuttling through the huge formation formed by the 250 bespectacled dogs. Instead, he subconsciously used the habitual thinking of humans and put the white figure into the things that he was familiar with. However, the figure that shuttled through the enemy's formation was different from the black, bespectacled dog's bloated body. It had a slender body that was closer to the size of a human's body, as well as a unique style of white gold paint. The gorgeous patterns on the armor seemed to indicate that this was not the that Chili Gu or even the Black Lightning Squadron was familiar with. The crosshair of the camera's eye mask was constantly locked onto the white figure. Chili Gu could see that the white figure did not seem to have any. No, yes. The white figure had a rifle that was about the same length as the GAT, .22 heavy machine gun that the spectacled dog was equipped with. However, in such an intense battle, it was hanging from its waist and had no intention of using it. The only weapons he used were two blood-red swords. As the white figure rampaged through the enemy ranks, every red arc of light that was released represented a black spectacled dog being cut in half. Who is that? While Chili Goo was puzzled, the Black Lightning Squadron, who were besieging the white figure, also noticed the hovercraft Chili Goo was in. Whistling sounds came from the sky. Several helicopters turned on their searchlights and hovered over the hovercraft, illuminating the attack area for their own ats. Buzz. Duh. The black-spectacled hounds closest to the hovercraft turned around amidst the roar of the machinery. They set up the anti-tank cannons on their backpacks and firmly locked onto the oncoming hovercraft. Boom, boom, boom. In just a few seconds, the dozens of black-spectacled dogs that had locked onto the hovercraft instantly burst out with a fierce firepower net, enveloping the area where the hovercraft was located. The thick smoke that soared into the sky, and the flames that rose and fell one after another. They were constantly jumping wantonly in the formation of the hovercraft. Chili Goo is here. After Lancelot's radiation vibrasword cut the black-spectacled hounds in front of him in half like cutting vegetables, Ray Minkai turned his gaze and looked in the direction of Gulfy City. At this moment, there were already several columns of black smoke rising from there. Kai, our target has been identified. Why don't you let the long-fanged lion attack? White Cat State Zero only glanced at the column of smoke rising into the sky and asked doubtfully. From Gashman's words, they learned that the target was the meteor that was hovering near this planet. Under such circumstances, Ray Minkai and White Cat State Zero should find a way to leave the ground and enter space to try to capture the hovering meteor. However, Ray Minkai suddenly decided to wade into this muddy water. This made White Cat State Zero somewhat puzzled. No, it's just that I haven't moved for a long time. Facing White Cat's doubts, Ray Minkai just smiled faintly and casually used the excuse that his hands were itchy and he wanted to fight to brush it off. So, just as Caligu was about to launch a surprise attack, Lancelot took the initiative and rushed out from the southeast side of Jeffrey City. With the two radiation-vibrating swords in his hands, he wantonly charged into the midst of the Black Lightning team. Looking down from the sky, one could see that the battlefield outside Gulfy City was inadvertently split into two by the attack of the hovercraft prepared by Ray Minkai, Lancelot, and Chili Goo. One side was trying their best to besiege and kill the highly mobile Lancelot, while the other side was using a dense net of firepower to try and destroy the hovercraft, so as to prevent the hovercraft from successfully breaking through and joining up with Lancelot. The commander of the Black Lightning Brigade undoubtedly thought so. From his point of view, Lancelot's surprise attack at the front and the hovercraft's attack at the back were all carefully designed arrangements. The purpose was nothing more than to cause the Black Lightning Brigade's team to panic and take the opportunity to inflict heavy damage on them. So, the commander of the Black Lightning Brigade, who thought that he had seen through the plan, made a decision. That was to transfer a portion of the forces besieging Lancelot to strengthen the attack on the hovercraft. Little did he know that this would liberate Lancelot. Chance! As the firepower surrounding Lancelot weakened, Ray Minkai's eyes suddenly lit up. Buzz! As Ray Minkai pushed the joystick, the driving wheels under Lancelot's feet immediately roared. While the yellow sand on the ground was swept up into the sky, it also increased Lancelot's speed to the limit. In an instant, the huge camera of the black-spectacled dog could no longer capture Lancelot's figure. No, he's gone. That strange white body is not. Swoosh! Before the pilot of the black-spectacled dog could finish speaking, he was cut into two by a red light. At this moment, red light flashed. White shadows crisscrossed. In a situation where the military forces were greatly reduced, Ray Minkai no longer had to worry about anything. He could fully utilize Lancelot's mobility to the extreme. At the same time, the radiation vibration sword in Lancelot's hand set off a storm that tore apart the black spectacled dog in front of Lancelot as he advanced in the enemy's formation. Suddenly, a harsh friction sound came from the back of the sand, dune not far away. It was as if something with a huge mass was rubbing against the sand and sliding quickly. Whoosh! The wind rolled up. Sand and dust followed closely behind. It was a hovercraft. It was a heavily damaged hovercraft that broke through the rain of bullets and flew over Lancelot's head with an aura of death. It crashed into the sand, dune 100 meters to the right of Lancelot. At the same time, the cargo containers loaded on the hovercraft fell off at this time and landed messily all over the sand dune. The sudden appearance of the hovercraft caused the black spectacled dog that besieged Lancelot to be momentarily stunned. A series of machine gun roars erupted from the cargo containers. As bullet holes appeared one after another in the form of a straight line on the cargo containers, a fully armed, green-painted black spectacled dog also rushed out of the cargo containers. It wantonly raised its GT-11 heavy machine gun and fired wildly at the black spectacled dog that was still standing in place. The roars of the short-barreled heavy machine gun continued to ring out. The dense and terrifying bullets also flashed, blowing up the black spectacled dog that was unable to react at all. Boom! Boom! In just a short moment, the Black Lightning Squadron had already lost 3 black spectacled dogs. Killigrew, who had made a beautiful attack, did not stay in place. Instead, he immediately increased the power output of the black spectacled dog's rotating wheel to the maximum. As the sand and dust rolled down, the green spectacled dog had already rushed a distance away. Dong! 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 Killigrew's departure seemed to be a signal. Before the commander of the Black Lightning Squadron gave the order, the remaining black spectacled dogs immediately locked onto the green spectacled dog's figure and launched a fierce attack. In the sky, the dense and terrifying anti-tank artillery shells pierced through the air and completely blocked the green spectacled dog's escape route. In the face of such a dangerous situation, Killigrew did not show any abnormalities. To him, this earth-shattering battle in the eyes of ordinary people was nothing more than an ordinary battle. Dong! 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 While Killigrew was calmly responding to the enemy's attacks, a white figure suddenly appeared beside the green spectacled hound. A strange green wall of light opened up, blocking all the cannonballs aimed at the green spectacled hound. Yo, Killigrew, we meet again. After that, the voice in the communication device made Killigrew stunned for a moment, but he quickly understood. He already knew the other party's identity. Ray Minkai, a man who he could not see through. However, Killigrew did not have any intention of responding. Hey, that cold-faced man is actually ignoring you. Kai, aren't you being too kind? White Cat State Zero saw that the green spectacled dog did not respond at all and immediately shouted in dissatisfaction. No, Killigrew is such a man. There is no need for him to say thank you. He will remember it. Compared to White Cat State Zero's frenzy, Ray Minkai was much calmer. This was because he knew that Killigrew was not good at expressing his feelings because of his tragic childhood. This did not hinder Ray Minkai's next move at all. Wong. In the next moment, the bloated green spectacled hound, the slender white body, and Lancelot began to cooperate without a single word or exchange of words. Lancelot, who was holding the radiation vibroblade, charged in front and attracted the attention of the enemy. The green spectacled dog, who was holding the short-barreled heavy machine gun, was at the back. While Lancelot attracted the attention of the enemy, it poured fierce firepower onto the enemy's head, blowing up the black spectacled dogs that were attracted by Lancelot. 2 vs 250. This huge difference in numbers, in the eyes of ordinary people, was undoubtedly a difference between heaven and earth, a difference that could not be overcome. However, at this moment, it became a possibility. Lancelot, who was charging in front, was not afraid of the bullets fired by the black spectacled dog's machine guns and anti-tank cannons. This was because in front of Lancelot, on both his arms, there were 3 radiation shields that were strong enough to block all attacks for Lancelot. As for the rear, which was not protected by the radiation shields, it was the responsibility of the green spectacled dog that Killigoo was driving. The two of them, who had only met a few times, had an amazing understanding at this moment. As they went back and forth, they covered each other countless times. Dozens of black spectacled dogs were blown up, and they galloped freely in the enemy's formation. "No, no, don't come over!" The pilot of the black spectacled dog screamed in fear. Swoosh! Swoosh! In the desert shrouded in darkness, Lancelot, who was painted in platinum, appeared and disappeared like a ghost, causing the black spectacled dogs to be unable to catch his tracks. When they finally found Lancelot's tracks, they were already split apart by the radiation vibroblade in his hand. Da-da-da! With Lancelot in the front attracting firepower, Killigoo, who was at the back, was very calm. The green spectacled dog that he was driving maintained a stable attack frequency at all times, blowing up the enemies that Lancelot could not take care of one by one, while maintaining a distance where he could cover for Lancelot. At this moment, the magazine was emptied. Under Killigoo's control, the green spectacled dog changed its route and accelerated towards the hovercraft that was already parked nearby. That was the ammunition supply point that Killigoo had prepared for a protracted battle. However, the enemy would not allow Killigoo to resupply so easily. Moreover, this was a good opportunity for Lancelot and the green spectacled dog to separate. If they did not take this opportunity to reverse the situation, the Black Lightning team would probably be destroyed by these two strange-looking aircrafts. Buzz! A beam of light suddenly lit up the night sky. A black spectacled dog that was trying to rush near the hovercraft and sneak attack Killigoo was hit. A terrifying hole instantly swallowed the body of the black spectacled dog, causing everyone who witnessed this to feel a chill in their hearts. Buzz! Another beam of light. Another terrifyingly large hole swallowed the other black bespectacled dog. However, this time, everyone could clearly see the source of the beam of light. It was Lancelot, who was holding the Vari's variable ammunition recoil cannon. Chapter 263. A white shadow descended from the sky and blocked in front of the green spectacled dog. At the same time, it spun rapidly on the spot, stirring up waves of sand and dust, covering everything around it. Of course, this included the green spectacled dog. Even though their vision was blocked by the sand, the Black Lightning Squadron did not stop attacking the green spectacled dog that Killigoo was driving. The roar of the machine gun, the roar of the anti-tank cannons, the air in the desert, which had started to become hot due to the rising sun, was pushed to the point where it was scorching hot. Rustle, rustle, rustle. There would always be a moment where the sand would fall. Furthermore, in the midst of the falling sand, there were countless howling bullets and artillery shells that broke through the sand and dust, launching a fierce attack on the enemies hidden in the depths of the sand. However, the movement that the Black Lightning Squadron members were hoping for did not come from the sand and dust. In the midst of the sound of the falling sand and dust, a strange yet familiar fluorescent light appeared in front of them once again. Radiation energy shield. Lancelot had a strong defensive ability since he was born. At this moment, Lancelot and the green spectacled dog standing behind Lancelot loyally provided an unparalleled defense. Even though there were gunshots and artillery fire outside, the radiation energy shield on Lancelot's arms was still strong and solid. Killigoo, are you ready? Ray Minkai did not turn back to check on the condition of the green spectacled dog that Killigoo was driving. He only asked this question calmly. Gotcha. It was not Killigoo who answered Ray Minkai. Instead, it was the sound of the short-barreled heavy machine gun in the green spectacled dog's hands. This was Killigoo's answer. In the process of attacking together, just now, Killigoo had already acknowledged Ray Minkai's and Lancelot's abilities. Therefore, the tacit understanding between the two was born. To the black spectacled dogs, Lancelot had an almost indestructible radiant energy shield and super mobility. During this period of battle, he had become a nightmare of all the black spectacled dogs in the Black Lightning Squadron. Be it the GAT, 22 heavy machine gun, or the 50mm anti-tank cannon called the Dodd Vanguard cannon. None of them could cause any damage to Lancelot's radiant shield. Even though the black spectacled dogs of the Black Lightning Squadron were subconsciously focusing their firepower on Lancelot, Lancelot was not going to stand still and be attacked passively. Not to mention, other than the powerful Lancelot that could attack and defend, there was also the green spectacled dog that Killigrew was piloting, which was launching swift and deadly attacks from the side. When Lancelot attracted most of the Black Lightning's forces, Killigrew sent almost 50 black spectacled dogs to hell without saying a word. Boom! There was a loud explosion. Flames shot up to the sky. Lancelot, who was holding the radiant vibrating sword, seemed to be covered in a golden glow under the light of the flames. This caused the black spectacled dogs to subconsciously take a few steps back. In the next second, a series of gunshots sounded from Lancelot's right side. A crazy storm of bullets engulfed the 3 black spectacled dogs that had mustered up their courage and tried to charge at Lancelot again. Boom! Almost at the same time, the 3 black spectacled dogs that still had a trace of courage turned into a huge ball of fire that rose into the sky. Pooh! When the green spectacled dog that Killigrew was piloting rushed out of the huge ball of fire, he controlled the machine in his hand and calmly shot out a deadly barrage of bullets. The enemy's attack was repelled once again. Ray Minkai looked at the black spectacled dogs that had subconsciously retreated tens of meters and assumed a defensive posture. He secretly sighed. It seemed that this battle did not need to trouble another person, right? However, reality did not develop in this way. In other words, no matter how much Ray Minkai affected the direction of this battle, on the other side of the planet, Ray Minkai was still far from being able to affect what was happening there. Killigrew, don't look down on people. This is the Black Lightning Brigade that has 250 ATs. The surrounding flames swayed in the dark smoke, and the surrounding atmosphere was still bleak. However, when this voice sounded, a ripple appeared in Killigrew's heart. Titania. It was rare for Killigrew to say this name silently. Ray Minkai, who had noticed the situation here, turned his head and saw that in the distant horizon, there were several small black dots that appeared in the growing white light. In between these small black dots, there seemed to be constantly flickering flames. Titania? Killigrew, Titania is being chased by the assassins sent by the Mathiara Church. Ray Minkai did not expect that when he was rejoicing that this battle did not require the second-generation motivator and Titania's appearance, reality would give him a backhand slap in the face in the next moment. This slap in the face was really fast. Chase! In Killigrew's calm and almost cold voice, there seemed to be a trace of doubt. Yes, because Titania lost to you in the previous duel, she is being chased by the church. However, let's say Titania first. Killigrew, is it okay to leave this place to you? Killigrew did not open his mouth to speak. He still used the sound of bullets being loaded to replace his answer. Although Killigrew did not know why Ray Minkai was so confident that he could save Titania's transport plane from being chased by dozens of ATs, which are the earth spiders used by the church, based on Killigrew's character, he would not ask this question. After all, in this battle, he had already recognized Ray Minkai's strength. Killigrew, cover me. For the first time, Ray Minkai asked Killigrew to cover him. Killigrew immediately did as he was told. Thus, under the cover of the green spectacled dog that Killigrew was piloting, a pair of brackets suddenly appeared on both sides of the cockpit on the back of the Lancelot. Immediately after, similar to the radiant energy shield, more dazzling fluorescent light instantly extended from the bottom of the brackets. In just the blink of an eye, a pair of bright and beautiful wings of light unfurled from Lancelot's back, causing Killigrew, who had been paying close attention, and the black bespectacled hound, who had personally witnessed Lancelot unfurling his wings of light, to fall into shock. Killigrew, I'll go first. With the wings of light extended, Lancelot instantly shot into the sky like a cannonball. No, that strange body wants to escape. Quick, stop him. Dom, 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 da-da-da-da. In their shock, Most of the black spectacled dogs who subconsciously thought that Lancelot wanted to escape all raised their anti-tank cannons towards the sky, trying to lock on a Lancelot's figure. However, Lancelot, who was flying with all his might, was simply too fast. He was so fast that the black spectacled dogs could not even capture Lancelot's figure despite constantly switching between their adjustable cameras. Furthermore, there were still people on the ground who would not watch the Black Lightning Brigade stop Lancelot's actions. Da-da-da-da. Gunshots rang out again. This was the roar of the green spectacled dog. The moment the dust rose from under the green spectacled dog's feet, the short-barrel machine gun in its hands once again began its journey to kill the black spectacled dogs around it. In the sky, far away, under the guidance of 3 helicopters, 3 gunships were closely following behind the transport aircraft that was escaping in front of them. They did not seem to have any intention of giving up. Da-da-da-da. The speed of the transport aircraft was not very fast. The helicopters that were chasing behind the transport aircraft were thus able to keep up with it. In the process of chasing after the transport aircraft, they continuously shot bullets at the transport aircraft. However, due to the armor of the transport aircraft itself and the superb skills of the pilot, the bullets fired by the helicopters did not pose any threat to the transport aircraft. At this moment, whether it was the Black Lightning Brigade or the gunship formation that was chasing after the transport aircraft, they had already discovered the existence of the other party. Retreat or continue to fight? This question was answered almost instantly in the hearts of the commanders on both sides. The troops that were besieging the green spectacled dogs did not retreat. The black spectacled dogs that were chasing after Lancelot turned their guns and cannons, locking onto the gunship formation that was about to follow behind the transport aircraft from afar. On the other hand, the gunship formation directly ordered the helicopters to accelerate and rush in front of the transport aircraft, trying their best to stop the transport aircraft. However, no matter how perfect the plan was, there would always be unexpected accidents. When the helicopters belonging to the gunship formation accelerated in front of the transport aircraft, a bolt of lightning suddenly appeared in the sky. Boom! In the blink of an eye, the helicopter that had accelerated in front of the transport aircraft suddenly exploded. It was not until the sparks from the explosion of the helicopter were scattered by the transport aircraft that the gunship formation reacted. Attack! We were attacked by Kirugamis's troops? Other than that, there seemed to be no other possibility. Therefore, the gunships that were chasing after the transport aircraft turned their main cannons in unison and locked onto the black spectacled dogs standing on the dune below. Then, the attack began. Boom! Boom! The cannons equipped by the gunship were much more powerful than the 50mm anti-tank cannons equipped by the black spectacled dogs. Just a simple shot was enough to turn a team of black spectacled dogs into ashes. In just 2 rounds of salvos, the 3 gunships destroyed several teams of black spectacled dogs. The out of the Mathiaru church, the gunship is attacking us. Attack quickly. We can't wait to die. The Black Lightning Brigade panicked and immediately began to counterattack. The 2 sides, who already had hatred for each other, had already forgotten who was the one who fired the cannons. They only knew that their side had already been attacked by the other party. They were only defending themselves and expelling all the enemies who were enemies of their side. Da-da-da-da, dang, dang, duh. In the sky above the dune, there was a barrage of bullets released by the gunship formation from the Earth Spider team used by the Mathiar Church. On the dune, there were the black spectacled dogs whose eyes were red and who urgently needed a channel to vent their anger. In the previous battle, they were powerless. Whether it was facing Lancelot or the green spectacled dogs, the Black Lightning Brigade, who used to roam the desert unhindered, finally tasted the irreparable gap in combat power and the taste of defeat. In the sky above the battlefield, Lancelot, who was flying rapidly, raised the Vari's rifle in his hand again. The attack that shot down the helicopter just now was done by Lancelot. Strangely, the gunship formation that was attacked did not immediately lock onto Lancelot's position. Instead, They chased after the transport aircraft driven by Titania and invested a considerable amount of troops to fight with the Black Lightning Brigade on the dune. This made Ray Minkai surprised and even more puzzled. According to Ray Minkai's understanding of the next step, for such a situation to happen, it would only happen after the second-generation motivator, which was Titania, drove her private aircraft to land. Is it a distortion of history? TSK, forget it. As soon as this thought appeared, Ray Minkai threw it aside. If it was a distortion, then so be it. As long as he could save the doomed Titania and break the curse of the motivator. So what if history was distorted? The crosshair on the screen in front of him was locked, and the trigger was pulled. Another helicopter that was chasing after the transport aircraft was shot down. In the next second, the last helicopter followed the same fate. Next, it was the gunship that was chasing after the transport aircraft. State 0. We're going. Okay. State 0, the white cat that was squatting steadily beside the pilot's seat, flashed and once again merged into Lancelot's system. Immediately, Lancelot's electronic eyes lit up with a terrifying red light. Moreover, traces of red light also extended from the pair of light wings behind Lancelot, as if it was giving birth to a bright red net-like object for the pair of light wings. Buzz! Lancelot's figure flashed and swept across the sky like lightning. Under Titania's slightly surprised gaze, he flew past the transport aircraft and went straight to the gunship formation that had just released all the Earth Spiders. Swoosh! The sword in his hand slashed down. The pair of bright red, radiant, vibrating swords in Lancelot's hands effortlessly slashed through the bridge at the top of the first gunship, causing sparks to fly all the way. The invincible sword blade was dragged all the way to the tail of the gunship and ruthlessly pierced into the engine of the gunship. Boom! The light wings behind Lancelot stretched out, and when the gunship exploded, he rushed into the sky and looked down at the remaining two gunships. Sorry, that's all. The sword blade changed, and Lancelot swooped down again, breaking through the billowing smoke that filled the battlefield. Once again, the radiant, vibrating sword in his hand slashed into the remaining gunship's hull. What kind of body is that? Ziligu, where did you find this helper? Titania, who let the transport aircraft follow the autopilot program and crashed into the depths of the Black Lightning Brigade's formation, looked at Lancelot, who was freely soaring in the sky, in shock. Chapter 264. The parachute slowly landed. The grayish-red which was Titania's dedicated grayish-red Earth Spider, also stood on the sand dune. And, looking at it from afar, the green-bespectacled dog stopped shooting and looked at it. Killigu, sitting in the grayish-red Earth Spider, Titania pursed her lips. She didn't expect that under such circumstances in this battlefield. Once again, she saw the man who affected her life. Killigu, even if you're someone who can't be contacted, don't underestimate people. There are 250 here. Perhaps because her body was nearing its end, Titania's voice became hoarse. Killigu didn't respond. He just silently drove his mount and raised his gun again. After blowing up the black bespectacled dogs that surrounded him one by one, he turned around and rushed down the sand dune. And Titania, who didn't get a response, didn't get angry. As Killigu's enemy, Titania understood Killigu's character and the strength of the man named Killigu Chiobi. Therefore, as long as the green bespectacled dog moved, Titania would immediately know Killigu's next move. Legend has it that Killigu Chiobi had a title among his many fans. As long as Killigu Chiobi boarded the then it was equivalent to a human-shaped natural disaster descending on this world. And, as the second-generation motivator, Titania also seemed to have such a title. Natural disaster. At this moment, they joined forces. Between the sand dune, the green bespectacled dog and the grayish-red Earth Spider didn't send any signals. They didn't even make any hand gestures. They just silently picked up the guns in their hands and drove the movable wheel under their feet with all their strength to accelerate. Accelerate. Accelerate again. Da-da-da-da. On the dark yellow sand dune, under the light that was about to rise, the green-bespectacled dog and the grayish-red earth spider were like two hurricanes descending from the sky. They quickly approached each other, but the moment they were about to enter the enemy's shooting range, they suddenly separated. At the same time, the machine guns in the green-bespectacled dog and the grayish-red earth spider's hands exploded, shooting bullets at the black-bespectacled dog that was driving the individual air cushion device and surrounding them. Da-da-da. The moment the ammunition in the grayish-red earth spider's hand was used up, it made a hollow sound. However, in the next second, a black shadow appeared in the corner of Titania's eyes. Immediately after, Titania, who subconsciously caught hold of the black shadow, did not even look at it. She directly controlled the grayish-red spider to raise its hands and shoot out blinding tongues of fire, suppressing the black-spectacled hound that was trying to rush out from the back of the sand dune. As it turned out, the black shadow was the heavy machine gun that Chi Gu was piloting. Of course, this was not the heavy machine gun that the green-spectacled hound was equipped with. Instead, it was the emergency equipment that Killigoo had taken from the black-spectacled hound. The purpose was to let the grayish-red earth spiders last until the next hovercraft stopped not far away. Titania understood what Zilliga meant. However, when she joined forces with Killigoo to kill the Black Lightning exploration team, she could not help but look at the sky. She looked at Lancelot, who was spreading his incredible wings of light. This was the first time she had seen an AT that could fly freely in the sky. Killigoo, who was the one who piloted that mech. With a quick turn, as the sand and dust rose, the earth spider suddenly flew up with a punch. After sending the earth spider of the Mathieu church, which had suddenly pounced over from the sand dune, flying away, Titania asked the question in her heart. I don't know. However, he could be trusted. Zillika's reply gave Titania a small shock. She had never thought that a man like Chi Gu would say that someone could be trusted. Titania heaved a sigh of relief. She realized that in her last moments, she had once again discovered a different side of Chi Gu. It's really surprising. Chi Gu. Titania's lips moved, and she gave up the idea of continuing. Now, let's deal with the enemy in front of us first. Swoosh. On the sand dune, a man and a woman who also had the title of Mobile Natural Disaster wandered around the area where the Black Lightning exploration team and the AT team of the Mathieu Church had landed. Whether it was the Black Lightning exploration team or the AT team of the Mathieu Church, they had all become their targets at this moment. The black-spectacled hound exploded. The earth spiders exploded, especially when they discovered that the grayish-red spider that Titania was driving had appeared behind the green-spectacled hound that Chi Gu was driving. Those arrogant people who had been chasing after them immediately classified the green-spectacled hound that Chi Gu was driving as one of the Black Lightning exploration team. Therefore, once this chaotic battle began, there would only be a final outcome of life and death. Buzz, 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 the green-spectacled hound threw away the short-barreled heavy machine gun that had been emptied of ammunition. It directly emptied its hands and rushed into the area where the Black Lightning exploration team and the AT team of the Mathieu Church were fighting. Whoosh! Sand and dust swirled up. Before most people could react to the situation, the green-spectacled hound suddenly jumped out from behind the sand dune. It raised its longing-armed punch at lightning speed and slammed it on the head of the nearest black-spectacled hound. Bang! There was a loud explosion. A large part of the head of this unfortunate black-spectacled hound suddenly caved in. From the looks of it, the pilot sitting inside was probably doomed. Da-da-da. After running out of ammunition, the green-spectacled hound that went into battle with its bare hands was not fighting alone. It had a strong backup. What mess. Chi Gu. Titania glanced at the enemy team that had been knocked down by the green-spectacled hound and directly drove the grayish-red spider to the front of the green-spectacled hound. She raised her gun. Shoot. Kill. Switch targets. Shoot again. Surrounded by nearly 100 black-spectacled hounds, Titania's expression was still calm and indifferent. It was as if the enemy that surrounded her and Chi Gu was not something worthy of her attention. At this moment, the only thing she could do was to calmly shoot, and shoot again. Of course, the enemy was not stupid. After fighting with Titania, most of the Black Lightning Exploration Team's pilots had already realized that this grayish-red spider was not easy to deal with. Perhaps it was out of caution, or perhaps it was because they were wary of the Mathiara Church as a team that descended from the sky. The Black Lightning Exploration Team's interception of Chi Gu and Titania seemed to have weakened. Chi Gu, Titania shouted, and Chi Gu immediately started the vehicle with all his strength. With a snake-like sliding speed, he rushed from the bottom of the sand dune to the top of the sand dune in one breath. The grayish-red spider that Titania was driving also followed closely behind. The only difference between the two was that the grayish-red spider's movement was retreating while fighting. At the back of the sand dune, there was a hovercraft that had been turned into a hornet's nest by the black spectacled hounds. Chi Gu casually glanced at the tattered appearance of the hovercraft and walked directly to the side of the hovercraft. He minded his own business and replenished ammunition for his own aircraft. The grayish-red spider that followed behind quickly turned around as it rushed up the sand dune. After emptying the last of its ammunition at the bottom of the sand dune, it turned around and retreated to the side of the hovercraft to replenish its ammunition, just like Chi Gu. Who? Buzz! The sound of the movable wheel rubbing against the sand dune rang out one after another. As the sand and dust flew, the black spectacled hounds quickly rushed up from behind the sand dune. This was an opportunity that they had been waiting for a long time. It was not easy for the two killing gods to run out of ammunition. How could the heavily injured Black Lightning Squadron let go of this opportunity so easily? Ka! There was no hesitation, nor was there a lot of nonsense at such a good opportunity like some villains would. The moment the black spectacled hounds rushed up the sand dune and confirmed that the green spectacled hounds and the grayish-red spider were replenishing their ammunition, gunshots suddenly rang out. Moreover, following closely behind the gunshots were the roaring artillery fire from the sand dune in the distance. The air was torn apart at this moment. The hovercraft was also buried by the artillery fire at this moment. Similarly buried were Chi Gu and Titania, who ignored the black spectacled hounds and continued to replenish their ammunition. Boom! At this moment, the ammunition loaded on the hovercraft was instantly detonated by the roaring artillery fire. The roaring explosion. The strong wind pressure. In an instant, the sand dune where the hovercraft was located was blown away. As long as one saw this terrifying scene, no one would think that the jets driven by Chi Gu and Titania would be able to escape, right? Target confirmed. The probability of survival is 0. A black bespectacled dog that seemed to have the insignia of a squad leader stepped forward. Just as it was about to open its mouth to report the situation, a sudden bullet suddenly pierced through the black bespectacled dog's head armor and pierced through the squad leader's heart. This, until the last moment, two steel bodies slowly walked out of the billowing flames from the blindfold that was still connected to the special adjustable camera of the black spectacled hound. That is, in the end, the small captain was unable to say the names of the two steel bodies. Yes, the explosion of the hovercraft did not knock down Chi Gu and Titania. It even created an opportunity for Chi Gu and Titania to launch another fierce attack. The members of the Black Lightning Squadron did not know how Sirigu and Titania were able to survive this horrifying explosion. The only thing they knew was that this pair of men and women who were like the god of death would probably be the god of death that would reap their lives. The fierce battle on the sand dune began once again. However, the scene in the sky was completely different. As this was the first time a humanoid mecha had appeared in this world that could fly freely in the air, the gunship formation, lacking the corresponding experience, could only try to pull up an anti-air barrage as much as possible. At the same time, they tried to gather together to form an even stronger anti-air firepower net to intercept Lancelot, who was attacking from all directions in the air. The scene of Xiao Luo destroying their comrade's ship with one sword had already made the remaining gunships tremble with fear. While they were constantly asking for help from the rear, they were also praying and trying to delay as much time as possible. Kai, they are asking for help. State Zero's voice sounded. Yes, I know. Ray Minkai nodded slightly and casually glanced at the situation below. In his opinion, as long as Titania landed safely and was not being pursued, Titania and Chi Li Gu, who were in good condition, would be able to deal with the people of the Black Lightning Squadron. Therefore, Lancelot's existence would be responsible for the control of the sky. Spreading his light wings, Lancelot's figure flashed and once again flew towards the gunship. In the battle just now, Ray Minkai had already discovered that these gunships, which had powerful main cannons as firepower output, did not take into account the weakness above their heads. Perhaps it was because there were usually escort groups in control of the air, but the anti-air design of these gunships was not comprehensive. Therefore, this was a delicious meal delivered to his doorstep. Ray Minkai would not let go of such a great opportunity. With a rapid ascent, Lancelot rushed to a height of 1,000 meters. Below him was the weakness of the gunship's air defense net, even if the remaining two gunships were covering each other's weakness. However, a weakness was still a weakness. It did not disappear because of the existence of the thin layer of firepower net. Moreover, even if the anti-air firepower net was denser, Lancelot was not afraid at all. Ka! Buzz! Light flashed when Lancelot's powerful radiation energy shield appeared once again. The light wings on Lancelot's back suddenly retracted. In the next second, Lancelot, who was still flying, paused. Instantly, with his head down and feet up, he fell straight down towards the gunship from a height of 1,000 meters. His speed was so fast that it even tore the air apart and made a series of terrifying screeching sounds. Amidst the terrifying sounds of the wind, the two gunships were frantically using all their anti-air machine guns and cannons to their maximum firepower net. Whoosh! The screeching sound of the wind stopped, and Lancelot, who was falling from the sky, plunged into the anti-air firepower net. In the blink of an eye, countless bullets and cannonballs hit Lancelot's radiation energy shield, and the sound was like continuous thunder. Dang, 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 dang. Amidst the dense and courageous bullets, Lancelot's existence was like an insurmountable mountain, forcing the bullets and cannonballs to either explode on the spot or be rebounded in other directions until Lancelot rushed through the firepower net unscathed and once again stood on the top deck of the gunship. Monster, go to hell! As soon as Lancelot stood on the deck, a group of soldiers armed with anti-air rifles immediately rushed out of the passage and pointed their guns at Lancelot. Swoosh! Boom! However, before they could shoot, Lancelot waved his right hand, and the claw hidden on his right forearm suddenly flew out and slammed into the passage. Bang! Gunshots rang out. The passage was destroyed, but did not destroy the will of these soldiers. Instead, they gritted their teeth and shot at Lancelot. Although the rifles in their hands were anti-air weapons, they still could not penetrate Lancelot's radiation energy shield. The more they shot, the more terrified the soldiers became. The moment the magazines were emptied, the soldiers finally realized that they could not cause any harm to Lancelot. The only thing they could do was to watch Lancelot, just like before, raise the radiation vibration sword in his hand and mercilessly tear a fatal wound on the top deck of the gunship. Chapter 265. The gunships that were blown up scattered their wreckage from the sky. In the previous attack, Lancelot had successfully broken through the anti-air firepower net and sent the two gunships on their final journey. As a result, there were no longer any other pilots in the sky above the sand dune other than Lancelot. The fierce battle below was still ongoing. However, the only difference was that in the assault of Kelligu and Titania, the battlefield that was originally a three-way mess had faintly turned into a situation where the Black Lightning Brigade and the Mathera Church had joined forces to fight against Kelligu and Titania. Perhaps it was because the combined power of Telugu and Titania was too shocking. Or perhaps it was because their own gunships were shot down by Lancelot. The anxious situation made the surviving commanders make the best choice in front of them. The green spectacled dog and the grayish-red spider were like two swimming dragons, shuttling through the battlefield wantonly. Every time the two met, they would be able to kill the enemies in front of them. Based on the current situation, even if Lancelot did not intervene in this battle, Telugu and Titania would be enough to end this battle. Even though this was a battle of single-digit numbers against a three-digit number of enemies. Only to this extent. In the sky, Ray Minkai looked at the wreckage of the gunships that were scattered in midair and pondered for a while. Kai, what did you find? State Zero's voice sounded again. No, I just have some doubts. Just as Ray Minkai was about to open his mouth to express his doubts, his heart suddenly seemed to stop beating at a certain moment, and his whole person became depressed. However, this also happened in a split second. After that, everything returned to normal. However, Ray Minkai did not dare to ignore this abnormality. State Zero, do you feel anything? Ray Minkai's question did not receive an answer from the white cat State Zero. After a few breaths, the white cat State Zero said slowly, maybe we don't have to go to space to find the fragments. As the white cat State Zero's voice sounded, it also controlled Lancelot's head and looked up at the sky. Lancelot's electronic eyes quickly adjusted and locked onto a certain area to zoom in and out. A light spot that was not very bright now, but became more and more dazzling as time passed, was rapidly falling from the vast space towards the sand dune. Meteor? No, not a meteor. Just as doubts arose, Ray Minkai immediately overturned them. The silver-gray paint, the circular appearance that was designed to break through the atmosphere. Other than that, no other information could be seen from the circular appearance of the object. The only thing that was known was that this strange object seemed to be rapidly falling towards the desert. Soon, it would fall straight into the desert. Telugu, Titania. Watch the sky. Something is falling towards this area. With Ray Minkai's reminder, Lancelot's figure rose and once again rushed up to 1,000 meters in the sky, looking at the rapidly falling object from afar. As the rapidly falling object approached, the strange feeling just now became clearer and clearer. The sense of oppression grew from nothing, from a subtle and undetectable feeling to a violent storm that engulfed Ray Minkai's senses. State Zero, is it a fragment? At this moment, the answer was no longer important. However, Ray Minkai needed to find a way to relieve the oppression at this moment. Yes, fragment. Above the sky, a fireball was burning fiercely. The black smoke trailing behind, it was constantly expanding, almost covering half of the sky. Even Gylfi City, which was outside the battlefield, could see the black smoke that spanned the entire sky with sparks. At the same time, they could faintly hear the rumbling sound that tore the sky apart. This horrifying scene was something that Gylfi City had never seen before. Not to mention the civilians. Even the high and mighty elders of the Mathura Church had never seen such a horrifying scene. What is that? A meteorite falling? With the help of his son, Barnilla, who had just woken up after being beaten unconscious by Telugu, looked up at the sky. For some reason, in Barnilla's heart, an ominous feeling surged like a tide. It was as if it was warning him not to stay in this city any longer. Sordio, quick! Gather your mother and your brothers and sisters. I will go find Papa Gort. We must seize the time and leave this city as soon as possible. Even though he was unwilling, Barnilla quickly made a decision. This sudden phenomenon was probably related to Telugu and Ray Minkai, who were fighting with the black lightning in the desert. Don't die. Telugu. Brother Kai too. Rumble. The falling object came very quickly. From the time Ray Minkai and the White Cat Zero discovered it to the time it crossed Gylfi City, it took less than a few minutes. Black smoke filled the sky. Flames swept across the sky. Then, this circular object with black smoke and flames in its wake plunged into the area between the black lightning and the troops of the Mathura Church with a terrifying momentum. Boom! At this moment, under the violent impact of this circular object, an amazing explosion occurred. The irresistible shock wave instantly raised the sand dunes to the ground. The sand dunes that used to be undulating had become a huge crater covered with spider webs. Outside this huge crater, there was a dry desert land that was exposed because the sand dunes were blown away by the shock wave. Not long ago, the black lightning and the earth spiders of the Mathiara Church, who were still fighting fiercely around this sand dunes, were blown away in this explosion that was equivalent to a meteorite hitting the earth. Their traces could not be seen at all around the crater. Rumble, the roar from the moment of impact still reverberated in the air, and a mushroom cloud with a diameter of at least 1 kilometer rose in the sky. In the gradually dissipating thick smoke, Lancelot's figure descended from a higher altitude to the top of the crater. Although he relied on the strong power of the newly developed light wing system to avoid the shock wave of the impact, Rei Minkai's expression was not good. Because before the impact, Rei Minkai had driven Lancelot to take the risk of closing the distance to see the true appearance of the circular object that suddenly fell from space. The result was what shocked Rei Minkai. State 0. Can our fragments bring the dead back to life? Rei Minkai's gaze wandered around the crater that was still filled with thick smoke. I don't know. When our hometown was torn into countless pieces, perhaps everything that I was familiar with had undergone unexpected changes. White Cat State Zero's eyes flashed a trace of seriousness. In the risky approach, just now, White Cat State Zero also saw that in the circular object there seemed to be a human woman lying down. Such a scene, not to mention Rei Minkai, even White Cat State Zero felt that it was inconceivable. Suddenly, a faintly discernible murmur sounded in the void. However, Rei Minkai and White Cat State Zero could not hear the voice clearly. Who is it? Someone is talking. After searching for a while, there was no conclusion. At this time, in the silent communication channel, Titania's usual calm voice sounded. Killigoo, if you're still alive, reply. Hearing this communication, Rei Minkai immediately activated Lancelot's signal tracking module and quickly locked onto Titania's position. With a flap of his light wings, Lancelot flew to a low sand dune. Immediately after, Lancelot raised his hand and went deep into the sand dune. After searching for a while, he caught an earth spider with grayish-red paint and dragged it out. This was the earth spider that Titania was piloting. When she saw that the person who rescued her from under the sand was Lancelot, she first showed a trace of astonishment, then a trace of admiration flashed in her eyes. You're the new helper that Killigoo recruited? Not bad. Thank you for the compliment. But now let's find Killigoo first. Rei Minkai kept increasing the power of Lancelot's signal tracking system, scanning back and forth in the sand dune that was almost flattened by the shockwave. As long as the green spectacled dog that Killigoo was piloting was not blown away by the shockwave, then the possibility of it being buried under the sand dune was very high. Although the collision was strange, thanks to it, the battle between a single-digit number and a triple-digit number should have come to an end. Looking at the grayish-red earth spider that pulled the green spectacled dog that Killigoo was piloting out from under a sand dune not far away, Rei Minkai's gaze once again fell on the huge crater. There might be another target that Rei Minkai was wary of. With Titania's action, the green spectacled dog's cockpit was opened, and the unconscious Killigoo appeared in front of the two of them. He just fainted. Titania checked Killigoo's condition and secretly sighed in relief. As expected of someone who cannot be contacted, he actually managed to survive this earth-shattering collision. Titania remembered that compared to her earth spider, Killigoo's green spectacled dog was closer to the collision site. Killigoo. Suddenly, a voice sounded in the air. You're calling Killigoo's name? Titania turned around and looked at Lancelot. No, it's not me. This time, Rei Minkai heard the voice clearly. This was exactly the same as the murmuring voice that he had heard before, the content of which he couldn't distinguish at all. Killigoo. The voice sounded in the air again. This time, Titania's body suddenly tensed up. She also recognized who the voice belonged to. How can it be? Isn't she already dead? While she was confused, there was movement in the green, spectacled dog's cockpit. It was Killigoo. For some reason, Killigoo, who should have been unconscious, slowly opened his eyes at this moment. He stared at the center of the crater that was filled with thick smoke. Fianna, have you come back to life? When Killigoo said this, Titania was instantly shocked. Fianna, the number 1 PS developed by the Kill Games camp. When her consciousness was blank, she met Killigoo. In the end, after a series of events, she fell in love with Killigoo and became an incomplete body with defects. In the following series of events, Fianna, who was originally man-made and born, eventually reached the end of her life. This was also the fate of man-made soldiers created for battle. Because of this, Fianna, who had reached the end of her lifespan and should have drifted alone in the universe after the Glorious Heresy incident, had once again appeared before Zilligoo and Titania in such a shocking manner. This made both Killigoo and Titania feel a sense of absurdity, but also a strange feeling. Killigoo, I'm here. As if calling out to Killigoo, in the center of the crater, in the thick smoke, when the voice became clearer and clearer, making Killigoo more and more certain that the voice calling out to him was Fianna's voice, Lancelot stood in front of him and blocked Killigoo's line of sight from looking at the crater. Let's stop here. Killigoo, although I'm happy to see you and Fianna reunite, right now, I still have some doubts to solve. After saying that, Lancelot bent his legs and jumped into the air. Under the drive of the light wings, he accelerated towards the center of the crater. At the same time, the weapon in his right hand changed from the radiation vibrasword to the Vari's rifle. Ta! 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 3 consecutive shots. Under the rapid sprint, Lancelot fired 3 of the most powerful special bullets in one breath. In the face of such a strange situation, Ray Minkai did not dare to be careless. His first shot was to increase the output components and change the Vari's rifle to the shooting mode. However, after the 3 consecutive special bullets entered the thick smoke, there was only a dead silence. There was no sign of the target being hit. Be careful! Just as the White Cat Zero's warning sounded, Lancelot suddenly twisted his body and narrowly avoided the special bullets that suddenly rebounded from the depths of the smoke. Boom! 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 After 3 consecutive booms, 3 deep pits with a diameter of about 10 meters appeared on the barren land behind Lancelot that only had a little sand left. Lancelot's attack was rebounded. Lancelot drew an arc trajectory in the air and quickly distanced himself from the center of the crater. During the probing just now, Ray Minkai did not obtain much useful information. Furthermore, while Lei Minkai was still trying to figure out the situation at the center of the deep pit, Killigoo, who had regained his senses, looked at the smoke that had yet to dissipate with a flicker in his eyes. He suddenly activated the green spectacled dog and activated its movable wheel with all its might, charging down the deep pit at full speed towards the thick smoke. Killigoo. Titania did not think too much about it. She just subconsciously drove the body behind the green spectacled hound. However, before the grayish-red spider could rush down the crater, it was blocked by a gust of wind that came out of nowhere. It could not move forward at all. It could only watch as the green spectacled hound rushed to the center of the crater. Chapter 266. The hurricane swept across. Lancelot, who was soaring in the sky, had no choice but to descend to the ground in the midst of this sudden hurricane, so as to avoid unnecessary consumption. The light wings dissipated. The support retracted. Under Titania's gaze, Lancelot changed from the appearance of a knight in the sky to the appearance of a knight galloping across the land. Did you find something in the sky? Titania knew that she could no longer move forward, so when she saw Lancelot land, she immediately asked, "It's just an object, an arc-shaped object." Ray Minkai pondered for a moment and said the guess closest to the current situation. "Maybe it's a coffin." "Coffin?" Hee. As expected. Hearing Ray Minkai's guess and Zilligoo's reaction just now, Titania had a clearer guess in her heart. Zilligu, you really did come to this planet in pursuit of that star. Titania gritted her teeth and tried to control the grayish-red spider to move forward again, but she was still blocked by the increasingly intense hurricane that swept up the remaining yellow sand on the wasteland. TSK. Titania was very unwilling, but there was nothing she could do at the moment. Do you have any ideas? Can that strange light shield still be used? After many attempts, Titania, who was still unable to move forward in the hurricane, looked at Ray Minkai's Lancelot. Yes, but if we continue like this in the hurricane, Lancelot's energy will probably run out in a short period of time. At that time, Lancelot will lose all compatibility. Ray Minkai lowered his eyes slightly and glanced at Lancelot's current energy display. Although Ray Minkai was confident in Lancelot's endurance, in order to avoid what would happen next, Ray Minkai still decided to save the remaining energy for later use. Besides, although Zilliga rushed into the depths of the deep pit alone, in reality, as a mutant, he was not an existence that could be killed so easily. As Titania and Ray Minkai waited, the hurricane became more and more intense. Crackle. Under the influence of the hurricane, countless grains of sand continued to accelerate until they collided with the cold steel armor and made a loud and chaotic sound. Only then did they fall to the ground. Sitting in the cockpit of the green spectacled dog, Zilliga's eyes hidden behind the electronic eye mask were focused. He was focused on the gradually sweeping sand in front of him, searching for the source of the voice that suddenly appeared in his ears. Amidst the sound of the moving wheel and the rustling of the sand hitting the armor, the green spectacled dog that was struggling to move forward in the hurricane suddenly swayed. The sudden blinding light in front of him made Chiligu close his eyes subconsciously to avoid the sudden appearance of the light. Zilligu. In the next second, the voice that called out to him rang out again. This time, Zilligu's mind shook. Fianna. Under Zilligu's shock, the green spectacled dog he was driving also stopped. He constantly adjusted the special adjustable camera on his head and scanned the space that was gradually becoming clearer. Finally, Zilliga saw it. He saw a circular object, or it could be described as a frame, that was inserted into the ground at a slanted angle. From the length of the exterior, this grayish-white, circular object seemed to have a third of it deeply embedded into the ground. However, this deeply embedded part didn't affect Zilliga's observation of the strange, circular object in front of him. As Zilligu's gaze followed the lines of the grayish-white circular object, Zilligu also noticed the half-transparent glass in the center of the object. That is, even though the exterior had changed, this piece of glass and the faint shadow behind it made Zilligu's gaze change. He almost opened the cockpit of the green spectacled dog. However, the scene in front of him was so strange, so strange. The extremely calm Chiligu actually erupted with powerful self-control at this time, forcibly stopping himself from opening the cockpit. If Titania could detect something, he could also detect it. But this period of loneliness was too long. The green spectacled dog's wheel stopped. Zilligu, who had calmed down again, changed the mode of the plane to walking. Step by step, he slowly walked towards the circular object in front of him. As the distance between them shortened, the translucent glass gradually became more transparent, and the figure that was covered by it also became clearer and clearer in front of Zilliga's eyes. It was a woman who was sleeping in this strange arc-shaped object. Her face was something that Zilligu would never forget. Fianna. It's really Fianna. Surprise surged towards Zilligu like a tide. However, very quickly, Zilligu's heart was only filled with caution and doubt. Fianna was already dead. This fact had long been engraved in Zilligu's heart. Moreover, at the last moment of Fianna's life, it was in Zilligu's arms that she finished her last journey. Why? Why would it appear here? If it's just a coffin, it's impossible to break through the burning atmosphere. Zilligu was confused. However, he made a decision in his heart. Ka! The green spectacled dog suddenly raised the heavy machine gun that it picked up from the sand and pointed the muzzle at the strange, circular object. Fianna. She's already dead. Da-da-da-da. It was as if it was showing its determination. It It was also as if it was showing that it wasn't confused by these seemingly real illusions. Zilligu decisively pulled the trigger and emptied the heavy machine gun in the green spectacled dog's hand. Gunshots rang out, and sparks continuously jumped back and forth on the circular object. However, no matter how ferocious the bullets were, they were unable to leave a single mark on the strange arc-shaped object. Seeing this, Zilligu's brows moved slightly, as if he was frowning. In the next second, the green spectacled dog threw away the heavy machine gun in its hand and instantly activated the wheel. The green spectacled dog immediately rushed forward like an arrow. Ooh! The wind whistled. An iron fist flew through the air. The green spectacled dog's armed fist smashed into the circular object without any obstruction. Bang! The magazine filled with the armed fist was instantly fired. The roar of the gunpowder and the powerful explosive force instantly spread along the firing mechanism to the green spectacled dog's iron fist, giving the iron fist a powerful force. However, as soon as the smoke caused by the explosion of the gunpowder rose, Zilligu discovered a terrifying thing. It was useless. Whether it was the green spectacled dog's heavy machine gun or the armed fist, they couldn't cause any damage to the circular object. This strange object was like an unshakable iron mountain, standing in front of the green spectacled dog. Suddenly, a wave of coldness suddenly attacked Zilligu. However, Kiligu's instincts told him to get the green spectacled hound away from the arc-shaped object the moment the cold aura hit him. Boom! It was only a short difference of 1 second. Not long after the green spectacled dog left, an explosion suddenly occurred where it was originally standing. It was an attack. Kiligu, who was driving the green spectacled hound far away, subconsciously looked up. He saw that behind the arc-shaped object, in the gradually dissipating sandstorm, a black spectacled hound with a missile pod on its left shoulder was locked onto him from afar. The Black Lightning Brigade? No. Almost at the same time this suspicion arose, it was rejected by the black spectacled dog that suddenly appeared. This was because after Kiligu easily dodged the missile fired by the black spectacled hound, the black spectacled hound casually threw the missile pod on the ground and charged at the green spectacled hound at full speed. On the way, the black spectacled dog didn't forget to raise the GAT-22 heavy machine gun that it had been holding in its right hand all this time and fired at Zilligu's green spectacled dog. Da-da-da-da. Although the bullet screen of the black spectacled dog looked very fierce, Zilligu was able to easily dodge it. However, in the process of dodging the attack, Zilligu saw a figure in the black spectacled dog's movements. Although the appearance of this illusion didn't cause Zilligu to make a mistake in the operation of the machine, it made Zilligu's face reveal a rare trace of seriousness. Da-da-da-da. Under Zilligu's control, the green spectacled dog continuously slid like a snake, randomly changed directions, and quickly turned around to avoid the black spectacled dog's shots. The bullets fired by the black spectacled dog couldn't hit the green spectacled dog that Zilligu was driving at all. In the end, they could only howl unwillingly and plunge into the wasteland under the green spectacled dog's feet into the sand pile. It was likely that this chase would continue for a while. Of course, the sound of this battle also gradually dissipated under the yellow sand and reached Titania and Rei Mingkai's ears. A battle between ats. Titania's hearing was very good. No, it should be said that the soldiers of this era were very sensitive to the sound of ats activating. Even if it was only a slight sound caused by the operation of ats, the soldiers of this era would be able to accurately and unerringly capture it. This was also the ability that allowed Titania to escape from a trap that was set up in the name of replacing the artificial blood that the soldiers of this era relied on to survive. There were no excessive words. There were also no warning signals. After Titania captured the sound of the ats fighting, she immediately activated the grayish-red earth spider and rushed into the deep pit in one breath. Kai, that android ran away. White Cat State 0 warned. Okay, I got it. In the next second, Lancelot put down the wheel and ran at full speed, following behind the grayish-red earth spider and rushing into the deep pit. The scale of the deep pit wasn't too big. With the speed of the grayish-red earth spider and Lancelot, they quickly rushed to the central area of the deep pit. Titania, who was the first to rush into the central area, saw the green bespectacled hound and the black bespectacled hound engaged in a battle. She also saw the circular object that was deeply embedded in the ground and the face hidden behind the glass. Fianna, without a doubt, as a representative of the church's combat power, Titania had naturally seen Fianna before. "Don't come over. I'll take care of it." At this moment, Zilliga's voice suddenly sounded in the communication channel. It turned out that the moment the grayish-red earth spider and Lancelot rushed in, Zilliga saw them. Perhaps he was afraid that Titania and Ray Minkai would interfere in the battle between him and the black spectacled dog. Zilligu actually opened his mouth and said this sentence. "Kai, let's not care about that iceberg man. Quickly go to that strange object. That's a fragment." White Cat State Zero's figure actually extended more than half of its body from the screen and raised its claws, pointing at the strange circular object and shouting, "Fragment." Ray Minkai's pupils shrank, and then he revealed a trace of a smile. "Looks like my guess was right." When Ray Minkai learned that the fragment was flying in the orbit of this planet, he had been wondering if it had some kind of connection with Fianna, who was sleeping in the coffin forever. In the end, this guess was answered by the appearance of the circular object in front of him. As soon as Lancelot moved, he was already dozens of meters away. The circular object was actually in front of him. However, things were not as simple as they seemed. A sharp whistle quickly came from the sky. In just a blink of an eye, more than 10 missiles appeared above Lancelot's head. Seeing that in the next second, Lancelot was about to be drowned by these missiles, Ray Minkai frowned. "Tis, Buzz." The radiant light flowed, and the radiant energy shield on Lancelot's arms once again expanded, and at the moment when the missiles were about to hit, Lancelot was firmly protected within. Boom, boom, boom. In a violent explosion, relying on the protection of the radiant energy shield, Lancelot, who was unharmed, quickly retreated. In one breath, he retreated a large distance until he retreated to the side of the grayish-red earth spider. Only then did he stop moving. Enemy? How is it possible? They should have been washed away by the shockwave. Titania, who had been watching from the side, clearly saw who the real culprit who attacked Lancelot was. However, she was distracted by the strange-looking black-spectacled hounds that could be recognized as the ones who were fighting with them before. They slid down for the edge of the deep pit and staggered toward this side. Ray Minkai counted. In a seemingly dusty formation, the number of these strange-looking black-spectacled hounds was only 1/5 of the previous 250. Are they the survivors of the previous shockwave? Ray Minkai's gaze paused on the black-spectacled hounds for a moment, then fell on the circular object that was clearly a fragment, but still emitted a strange aura, the coffin. Could it really be possible to resurrect the dead? Chapter 267. Sha-sha. The thin sand was thrown high into the air by the rapidly spinning wheels, constantly hitting the cold armor. Green spectacled dog, black spectacled dog. It had been nearly 10 minutes since the start of the battle. In these 10 minutes, the green spectacled dog had been relying on the remaining armed punch, as well as the superb driving skills of its pilot, Chi-Li Gu-Chiobi, to fight with the black spectacled dog. The missiles were used up, the machine gun in its hand was also used up. The black spectacled dog was still unable to catch the green spectacled dog's figure. After the black spectacled dog's machine gun fired the last bullet, the two sides began to engage in equal close-range combat. They only relied on the armed punch to fight. Bang! The steel fists stirred up gusts of wind as they collided with each other. At the moment of impact, the ammunition loaded on the armed punch was activated. The terrifying impact traveled along the arms of the two sides and quickly reached the tip of the fists, creating an even more terrifying collision. Boom! In just a short moment, The arms of the two spectacle hounds of different models suddenly exploded, and they ended up being blown up at the same time. Buzz. However, this unexpected situation did not surprise Chili Goo. He was still calm and could still make the most accurate judgment of the situation in front of him. Because of this, when he drove the green spectacled dog to quickly retreat, he clearly saw the black spectacled dog's next move after its arm was blown up. Seeing this, Chili Goo's face finally showed a trace of emotion. Yes, he finally recognized it. The black spectacled dog that suddenly appeared in front of him and attacked him used an attack that he was extremely familiar with, because the user of this attack was the most unforgettable existence in his life. Fianna. While muttering, Chili Goo's gaze quickly looked at the center of the deep pit, at the circular object that was quietly inserted there. Fianna, the woman he cared about the most in his life, was forever sleeping there. "Who are you?" A cold voice came out of Chili Goo's throat, which was rare. This was perhaps a rare extreme reaction in Chili Goo's life. Also, after all, Fianna was the woman Zilligoo cared about the most in his life. After understanding everything and understanding his own existence, he chose to seal himself together with Fianna and end up drifting in the vast universe. From this, it could be seen how important Fianna's existence was to Chili Goo. However, he didn't answer Killiga's question. He only sped up in silence, raised his left fist, which was still intact, and went straight for the green spectacled dog's head. Seeing this, Killigoo's eyes flashed coldly. The green spectacled dog raised its left fist in the blink of an eye and did the same thing to the black spectacled dog's left fist. Boom! Unsurprisingly, the result of the collision between the two fists was still the same. The moment the bullets in their arms exploded, both fists were destroyed and fell apart. Then, this time, the green spectacled hound wasn't pushed back by the force of the impact. Instead, under Killigoo's full power, it charged forward instead of retreating. It suddenly exploded with the most powerful speed, directly pouncing towards the black spectacled hound that was retreating due to the recoil from the impact of the two fists. Pung! The moment the green spectacled hound's figure enveloped the black spectacled hound, the adjustable camera on its head became the first victim of the close contact between the two hounds. The moment the camera shattered, the collision between steel and steel occurred once again. However, this time, it was a strong collision between the hound's head armor. Cracks instantly covered the entire head armor. Then, as some armor fragments flew everywhere, Killigoo took off the eye patch on his face and used his cold gaze to look through the head armor that was getting bigger and bigger. In the end, it completely shattered, and he looked directly at the cockpit of the black spectacled hound whose head armor was also shattered. The next second, Killigoo's pupils rapidly shrank. No one. As the armor fragments flew everywhere, the scene that Killigoo saw was shocking. The black spectacled hound that he had been fighting with for more than 10 minutes was actually empty. Then, how could the black spectacled hound without a pilot be able to fight with him for so long? Moreover, its maneuvering and attacking methods were exactly like Fianna's in the past. Why? Killigoo was stunned. But soon, his stunned gaze returned to calmness. Yes, Fianna was already dead. Although Killigoo didn't know and didn't understand why the black spectacle hound would automatically activate and fight with him without a pilot, the empty cockpit in front of him meant that what Killigoo was worried about didn't happen. Thoughts flashed through Killigoo's mind like lightning. In reality, the green spectacled hound successfully used its head to knock the black spectacled hound to the ground. Immediately after, the green spectacled hound lifted its leg and stomped on the black spectacled hound's body. Bang! The sound of metal colliding exploded. The steel, all hidden in the green spectacled hound's leg, suddenly popped out and gave the black spectacled hound a solid blow. The sharp steel all effortlessly pierced through the black spectacled hound's body and pierced through its power pack in the blink of an eye. Boom! An explosion followed. The huge fireball that exploded from the black spectacled hound instantly engulfed the green spectacled hound that Killigoo was piloting. Killigoo, on the other side, the attention of Titania, who was surrounded by dozens of strange black-spectacled hounds, was attracted by the fireball that rose into the air. Dang, dang, dang. The next moment, an energy shield that flashed with green light blocked the right side of the grayish-red spider. Calm down. Killiga won't die so easily. Ray Minkai also noticed Killiga's battle. It was just that he saw it more clearly than Titania. It could be said that everything that Killigu saw, Ray Minkai also saw. Just like Chiligu, Lei Minkai was also shocked by the black-spectacled dog that was alive and kicking despite not having anyone in sight. Originally, he thought that the black-spectacled hounds that suddenly rushed out were the survivors of the Black Lightning Brigade. In the end, Lancelot turned his wrist and, with lightning speed, fiercely chopped off half of the head armor of one of the black-spectacled hounds that rushed up. There was no one. The cockpit of this black-spectacled hound was indeed the same as the one that Killigu was fighting with. Both of them were unmanned. At this moment, Killigu's figure also flew out from the thick smoke that rose into the air and fell towards the low sand dune below. Seeing this, Titania immediately took action and drove the grayish-red spider with all its might towards the location where Killigu fell. The grayish-red spider's speed was very fast, but there were too many enemies around. If the grayish-red spider did not reduce its speed and took a detour, it would probably be entangled by the enemies. Of course, behind the grayish-red spider, there was also Lancelot's so-called backup. Lancelot raised the Vari's rifle in his hand and used his left hand to twist towards the direction of the Vari's rifle. The front end of the Vari's rifle immediately extended vertically from top to bottom. At the same time, the barrel in the center also extended forward. Explosive mode. Activate. You can fire at any time. State 0, the white cat said. Raymond Kai's left eye slightly narrowed. The moment the crosshair on the screen turned red, the trigger was pulled. Wong, after a low, buzzing sound, a vast beam of light that was enough to tear the void apart shot out. With an indomitable momentum, it passed by the right side of the grayish-red spider and went straight into the enemy formation in front of the grayish-red spider. Rumble. At this moment, the deep pit area with Lancelot, as the center was dark and bright at the same time. This was because the vast beam of light shot out from the Vari's rifle in Lancelot's hand had stolen the brilliance of the sun and made himself the only source of light in this area. Rumble. This light did not last long. As the rumbling sound gradually subsided, a straight scar appeared in front of the grayish-red spider, and around this scar, the remains of the black-spectacled hound were scattered messily. Go, Titania, hurry up and save Killigu. I'll take care of this place. As Raymond Kai's voice rang out, Lancelot, who had completed this shocking attack, put away the Vari's rifle in his hand and picked up a pair of radiation vibroblades. The power of the guiding will suddenly increased. Amidst the flying dust, Lancelot caught up with Titania, who was trying to follow the path burned by Lancelot's attack to save Ziliku. However, Ray Minkai did not do the same thing as Titania. Instead, when the grayish-red spider was about to leave the path created by the fire, he turned around abruptly and Lancelot raised the two swords in his hands and faced the black-spectacled hound that was quickly gathering over. Come on, it's just a drone. Wong. The guide wheel roared. Lancelot immediately turned into white lightning and danced with a pair of radiation vibroblades into a bright red whirlwind. With just a single charge, the enemy's formation had already been scattered. Wong. Breaking the enemy's formation was not enough to satisfy Ray Minkai, nor was it enough for Ray Minkai's plan to succeed. Therefore, Lancelot quickly turned around. Under the powerful inertia, he suddenly threw out his left hand, and the hook on his arm shot towards the ground. Boom! With a loud bang, Lancelot leaped high and flipped his hands. At the same time, he threw out the hook on his arms. Like lightning, they pierced through two black-spectacled hounds that were closer to Lancelot. However, this did not stop the hook's momentum, nor did it give Lancelot a reason to stop. Lancelot turned around in midair and the two hooked claws that pierced through the black spectacled hounds began to rotate slowly with Lancelot as the center. Moreover, it was getting faster and faster, and its strength was getting stronger and stronger. From the slow swing at the beginning to the end, even if it was restrained by several black spectacled hounds, it was still able to maintain a certain acceleration and whip towards the two surrounding areas. Moreover, Lancelot's strength was far from limited to this. Schwa! With a flash of light and shadow, Lancelot's back once again unfolded the pair of light wings. As the light wings flickered, Lancelot suddenly retracted his hooked claws. The moment the wreckage hanging on the hooked claws fell apart, he swung them out again and swung them at an even faster speed than before. Hoo! The wind suddenly blew. The two hooked claws and their steel cables had become the main body of the storm as Lancelot spun rapidly. This time, once again, he swept through the formation of the black spectacled hounds. After paying the price of almost half of their forces, these strange black spectacled hounds retreated again and again. They chose to use the guns in their hands to focus fire on Lancelot. However, this was not of much use. From the moment the battle began, whether it was the Black Lightning Brigade or the Ats of the Mathiara Church, they were unable to break through Lancelot's radiant energy shield. Therefore, when Lancelot retracted his hooked claws, the radiant energy shield that he was equipped with once again bloomed with that beautiful yet invulnerable brilliance. Ziligu has fainted. There seems to be other wounds. Let's retreat first. While Lancelot blocked the pursuers for Titania, Titania also quickly finished taking in Ziligu. However, for the tattered and bleeding pressure suit on Ziligu's body, Ziligu's current condition did not seem to be very good. Ray Minkai drove Lancelot back to the side of the grayish-red spiders and quickly glanced at Ziligu, who was in Titania's arms. Yes, let's retreat. Kai, wait. If we retreat now, I'm afraid something unexpected will happen here. When that happens, how are we going to recover the fragments? Upon hearing that Ray Minkai wanted to retreat temporarily, the White Cat State Zero said anxiously, "No, even so, we have to retreat. The situation here is too strange. Look over there, the number of enemies is increasing. If this continues, we will be trapped here." Ray Minkai shook his head, stretched out his finger, and pointed at the edge of the deep pit not far away. There, a grayish-yellow shadow appeared shakily on the edge of the deep pit. It was the earth spiders used by the Ats of the Mathiara Church, which are the troops that chased after Titania. Unexpectedly, not only the Black Lightning Brigade's black spectacled dogs, but even the Ats of the Mathiara Church survived the sandstorm just now. Just this little force. Let me turn back into the long-fanged lion and kill them. White Cat State Zero let out a low growl. No, let's retreat first. Listen to me. State Zero. Ray Minkai's decision was firm. Seeing that things were not going well, the White Cat State Zero also fell silent. Thus, under the cover of Lancelot, more and more spiders appeared on the edge of the deep pit. There were even a small number of spiders that had rushed into the deep pit and gathered around the arc-shaped object. Ray Minkai and Titania temporarily left the deep pit with the unconscious Ziligu and retreated towards Geelf City. Chapter 268. At night, batch after batch of retreating residents of Gulf City stepped out of the city they were born and grew up in. They all looked back at the streets they were familiar with in unison. Their eyes were filled with reluctance and confusion about the future. Due to the impact of the fierce battle 12 hours ago with the Black Lightning Brigade and the Mathiara churches who broke into the battlefield, the city was in a state of panic, especially when the strange arc-shaped object fell from the sky and flattened half of the desert where Geelf City was located. The residents of Geelf City finally broke down. In desperation, the Mathiara Church that had protected the city for thousands of years finally ordered everyone to evacuate the city. The city is dead. On the hillside, State White Cat Zero looked at the deep pit in the distance, as well as the black spectacled dogs and earth spiders that gathered at the edge of the deep pit from time to time. He lowered his head and looked at the scene. Although there was not much crying, it could make people feel the sadness of leaving their home. No, the people are still here. There is still hope for the city. Moreover, the situation is not that bad yet. Ray Minkai shook his head and took a big gulp of water from a water skin. The second half of the battle that took place half a day ago was filled with a strange aura from beginning to end. Even if it was clear that the fragment was there was no way to know how the strange arc-shaped object suddenly fell from the sky and accurately hit the center of the battlefield. Coincidence? What a joke. Ray Minkai could not accept and believe this. Therefore, when he returned to Golfi City, Lei Minkai asked Barnilla's family, who had come to receive him, to do something for him. Brother Kai, looks like I made it. At this moment, the panting Barnilla finally brought an old man to the hillside where Ray Minkai was. Ray Minkai put down the water skin in his hand and looked back at the old man behind Barnilla with State Zero, White Cat State Zero. His forehead was full of wrinkles, and his white beard almost reached the ground. His back was hunched, and he looked no different from an ordinary old man. However, Ray Minkai noticed the pair of eyes that flashed with light from time to time. While Ray Minkai was sizing up the old man was also sizing up Ray Minkai. Furthermore, the old man was the first to speak. "Are you the traveler Barnilla spoke of?" Ray Minkai glanced at Barnilla. It seemed that Barnilla hadn't told him everything, but it didn't matter much. "Yes, you must be the elder of this city, right? Today, I have something to ask you." Lei Minkai didn't waste any time on pleasantries and directly stated his purpose for coming. "Yes, Barnilla has already told me." The old man nodded, raised his hand to touch his beard that almost reached the ground, and spoke again. "Traveler, your doubts are probably related to the things over there, right?" As the old man spoke, he stretched out his finger and pointed to the deep pit surrounded by many black spectacled dogs and earth spiders. "Yes, Elder, I think you, or the Mathiara church behind you, can answer my questions." In Ray Minkai's speculation, the only thing that could cause such a mutation in the coffin where Fianna slept was probably the declining Mathiara church. Moreover, the Mathiara church itself had a record of disturbing other people's dreams. In the Glorious Heresy chapter, if it wasn't for the deviation of the church's own path and the attempt to destroy the untouchable person that even the two super empires couldn't destroy, Ziligu Cupid, as the highest glory of the church, the Mathiara church probably wouldn't have fallen to such a point. Sigh. The old man raised his eyes and looked into Ray Minkai's eyes. "Yes, that coffin is indeed related to the church. Although this was done by the fighting faction within the church, it was also part of the decision made by the church itself. Whether it's the fighting faction or us conservatives, both sides can't draw a clear line from this matter." Before the old man could finish his words, he was interrupted by Ray Minkai. "Wait, Elder, today's topic is not to discuss the internal disputes of the church, but to figure out, why did she fall from the sky?" Ray Minkai raised his finger and pointed to the deep pit in the distance. The elder's face froze and sighed again, but there was some hesitation in his expression. "Elder, I still have to help evacuate the residents. I'll leave here for a while." Barnilla, who was standing next to him, seemed to have noticed something. He took the initiative to speak and found an excuse to leave, leaving the space for the two. "No, Barnilla, you'd better stay." However, the elder stopped Barnilla. Before Barnilla could react, the elder made a decision. Everything started when the untouchable person was awakened. The old man told the beginning of a story. Yes, everything started when Mondieris, who was at his peak, tried to become the new law king and further the church's influence at the same time. The untouchable person, Kiligachobi, was also the strongest human in the universe. Even the two super empires couldn't destroy the human. If such a powerful existence could be defeated, or even killed, then the Mathiara church, and even the new law king, Mondieris, would become the only supreme existence in the Milky Way. Moreover, When the untouchable person was awakened, the church's research team also found an object that couldn't be analyzed near the airspace where the untouchable person was sleeping. After some analysis, the research team unanimously agreed that this object was God's creation and directly presented this result to the church's higher-ups. The result could be imagined. While the next generation's warrior plan was being carried out for the untouchable person, the analysis project of the so-called God's creation was also being carried out in secret. However, it was a pity that until the heresy of glory, the failure of the next generation's warrior plan, the church had used all known scientific and technological means, and even used many forbidden means, but they were still unable to effectively analyze God's creation. Until the representative of the next generation's warrior was hunted down by Titania, the shield of order, this God's creation that had once caused a series of earthquakes among the church's higher-ups disappeared without a trace. Disappeared? Listening to the old man's narration, Ray Minkai showed a mocking smile. I'm afraid it was moved from the surface to the underground? Otherwise, why would the coffin that should have been floating in the universe forever suddenly fall here? The old man opened his mouth, but didn't say anything. The old man was silent for a while, his gaze fixed on the deep pit in the distance for a long time. Yes, on the surface, the church claimed that they had given up the analysis project of God's creation, but in fact, some people with ulterior motives moved it here, because near this planet, a coffin just happened to appear. So, the church tried to use the woman lying in the coffin to analyze God's creation. All of a sudden, a cold female voice came down from the hillside. Ray Minkai looked back and saw that it was Titania. How did Titania, who was supposed to be looking after Ziri, come here? There's not much time left. I want to know why Fianna's coffin fell here. That star should be hanging above the starry sky. Titania's words had many meanings, but Ray Minkai didn't delve too deeply into it and continued to look at the old man. Our shield of order, please forgive our ignorance. We have personally tasted the price of trying to touch the pinnacle of power. Now, what we can do is to evacuate the residents of this city to a safe place. The old man's words made Ray Minkai suddenly burst into laughter. Ha ha! A safe place? I'm afraid this planet will soon turn into nothing. What? Brother Kai, what are you talking about? This planet. Barnilla, who had been watching from the side, looked at Ray Minkai, who suddenly spoke arrogantly in surprise. You don't believe me? Hee. Fine. Elder, did you implant the God's creation into her, Fianna's body? Ray Minkai smiled and asked the old man with a sharp gaze. At this point, Ray Minkai could roughly guess what had happened. The old man lowered his eyes and nodded slightly. I'm not too sure about the experiment. However, according to the experiment report provided later, the God's creation was indeed placed in the PS number 1 experimental body. Why did you do this? Fianna's lifespan should have come to an end. Why did you disturb the peace of the dead? Titania immediately scolded him harshly. The dead? Isn't that better? A body without a soul is just a container. What the church lacks is no doubt a container that can store the God's creation and use it smoothly. As the PS number 1 experimental body, she is undoubtedly a suitable candidate. The old man let out a sorrowful laugh. In the end, the church still smashed their own feet. Click! At this time, the sound of a bullet being loaded was heard. Hearing the sound, Barnilla turned his head and immediately blocked the old man with a face full of panic. On a higher hill, Ziligu, who was supposed to be recuperating in bed, suddenly appeared here for some reason. In his hand was the gun that he carried. Ziligu, what do you want to do? The elder is not the culprit that harmed Fianna. The cold and dark muzzle was steadily pointed at Barnilla. The cold and sharp gaze made Barnilla feel the aura of death that he only felt when he fought with Ziligu on the battlefield. But the funny thing was, this time it was not the enemy's gun that brought him the aura of death. It was the gun of his close friend, Ziligu Chubby. Ziligu, put down the gun. The elder is not the culprit that harmed Fianna. I can assure you of that, Titania said. But Ziligu did not put down the gun because of this. Barnilla, get out of the way. My life doesn't matter. Someone has to take responsibility for the mistakes that our church has made. This is our responsibility and also our destiny. The old man who was blocked by Barnilla turned around and pushed Barnilla aside, standing directly in front of Ziligu. Shoot, you're not to be touched. Perhaps our Mathiara church should not have awakened you in the first place. Sorry. There was no fear of death on the old man's face. There was only magnanimity and calmness in the face of death. Ziligu's fingers twitched. In the end, he closed his eyes, put down the gun, and turned to leave the hill. Ziligu, wait for me. When Banilla saw Chiligu's uneven footsteps, he didn't even think about it before running over to help Chiligu walk away. After Ziligu left, the hill was silent. Whether it was Ray Minkai, Titania, or the old man, they all maintained their tacit silence until one of them could not take it anymore. Finally, the old man spoke. Traveler, do you have a way to solve this? Ray Minkai still maintained his silence. However, the old man did not have the intention to delve deeper. He only nodded and left a few words. Then, he turned around and walked down the hill unsteadily. There's not much time left. I'll go back and prepare. You and Ziligu will attack again tomorrow, right? Titania raised her head and asked as she looked at the crescent moon that was gradually rising. Yes, Ray Minkai nodded. Titania was undoubtedly the best warrior. Her tactical qualities and mech piloting skills were undoubtedly top-notch. It was just that. How much time do you have left? Ray Minkai suddenly asked. Titania was stunned for a moment. Then, there was a hint of relief in her eyes. Is that so? I didn't expect that even a stranger like you could see it. Yes, I'm afraid I don't even have a day's time now. Ray Minkai muttered to himself and looked at the white cat state 0. Why are you looking at me? I don't have a way to extend the life of this pile of machines. In the white cat state 0's vision, Titania was not a human with flesh and blood. Instead, she was a pile of machines mixed with flesh and blood. No way. The white cat state 0 waved its paw in annoyance. No. However, that Ministry of Justice doctor might have a way. Ministry of Justice doctor? Thinking of the existence of the Ministry of Justice doctor, Ray Minkai gradually gained some confidence in his heart. In the end, the situation that Titania was facing now was because the artificial blood that sustained her life was on the verge of collapse. She urgently needed fresh and pure artificial blood. Otherwise, Titania would die. Titania, if you still want to stay by Chiligu's side, then you have to survive. The conversation on the hill had made the truth clear. The person lying in the coffin was undoubtedly Fianna. However, the current Fianna did not come back from the dead like a saint in the legends. Instead, she had fallen into an inexplicable state. However, there was no doubt that this strange state would very likely cause Jerfy City and even the planet to fall into an earth-shattering disaster. Ray Minkai and the White Cat State 0 were very clear about this point. When the crescent moon rose to the highest point in the night sky, 3 machines quickly rushed out from the shadows of Jerfy City's collapsed gate. Ziligu, can you do it? Ray Minkai's voice came from the Lancelot leading the way. Ziligu, who had not recovered from his injuries, stubbornly overthrew the Barnilla father and son who were blocking him and forcefully boarded the spectacled hound. Obviously, he had made some kind of decision. Yes, I will. Ziligu's voice was calm, but there was a trace of pain in the depths of his voice. Chapter 269. The crescent moon hung in the west. The green spectacled hound, the grayish-red earth spider, and Lancelot quietly moved along the shadows between the low sand dunes and carefully touched the edge of the deep pit. Here, Lancelot took a step forward and opened the 2 infrared detectors on his chest that were rarely used. The number has increased a lot compared to before. Now, there are at least 100 that's wandering in the deep pit. Ray Minkai reported the situation he observed in the combat channel that they discussed in advance. 100? In the impact, just now, there's still 100 that's surviving? Titania frowned slightly, but she was in disbelief. One had to know that her grayish-red Earth spider was able to survive the previous impact, and it took a Herculean effort to do so. And those pilots whose piloting skills were obviously not as good as hers were able to do so? No, they didn't survive. They should be controlled. Ray Minkai raised his hand and pressed on the control panel. He looked at the image that popped up after the system's optical analysis and continued. The Ets wandering near the coffin don't seem to be complete. There are scars all over their bodies, and even a few its head armor is damaged. Unmanned? When he heard that the head armor was damaged, Zilligu remembered the unmanned black spectacled hound that he destroyed before he fainted. It had the same maneuvers as Fianna when she personally piloted the Ats. I'm afraid so. Looking through the damaged helmet, I didn't see a single human sitting inside. If it weren't for the fact that the Ets cockpit was not equipped with a screen, Ray Minkai would have been more than happy to share the images and information collected by Lancelot. However, in fact, the Ets could not be involved in Lancelot's intelligence system. The only thing it could do was to have Ray Minkai share the information collected by Lancelot to Zilligu and Titania in the form of oral narration. Although it was a pity for Zilligu and Titania, it was indeed enough. Spectre? Titania muttered to herself for a moment before speaking again. Killick, it was Fianna's spirit that was lying in the middle of the pit. What should we do? What should he do? Killigoo's gaze and expression did not change at all. The answer, perhaps it had been decided from the very beginning. Buzz, the green spectacled hound that Killigoo had replaced in Jerfy City, charged out first amidst the rumbling of the movable wheel. However, when the green spectacled dog flew out from the edge of the pit and fell downwards, the two short-barreled heavy machine guns in its hands let out a sharp roar. TSK. Bang. Bang. The bullets from the short-barreled heavy machine gun hit the Ats that were wandering in the deep pit. In the midst of the sparks from the clash between bullets and armor, the green spectacle hound that launched the ambush had an additional 10 Ats. However, this was only the situation in the short 30 seconds that Killigoo piloted the landline to launch the ambush. As the black spectacled hounds and the earth spiders mixed among them were blown up by the green spectacled hound, these Ats that were like resurrected dead immediately woke up from their stupor. At this moment, Killigoo felt an unusually familiar aura. This was the aura of the woman he cared about the most in his life. Fianna, do you want to open your eyes and see the world again? A cold light flashed in Killigoo's eyes, and the green spectacled hound's movements suddenly became strange and unpredictable. Sometimes it was like a spirit snake swimming. Sometimes it was like a thunderbolt in less than a minute. In the eyes of ordinary people, the mass-produced green spectacled hound that was undoubtedly synonymous with backwardness actually made a series of maneuvers that even the elite pilots of the Empire could not complete in a coherent manner. Perhaps it could be said that, as long as one could master the maneuvers that Killigoo was using at this moment, that pilot would be the elite of the elites. However, the enemies that stood opposite Killigoo were the same. No matter if it was the snake-like sliding steps used by Killigoo or the rapid continuous turns and other maneuvers, they were all able to follow Killigoo's movements without any difference. Everything in front of him was so strange. However, Killigoo was unmoved. In his eyes, there was only one goal. That was to rush to the center of the deep pit at the fastest speed possible, and once again arrive in front of Fianna's coffin. Wong. Suddenly, a beam of light pierced through the air and blew up an earth spider that was trying to pounce on the green spectacled hound from the side. Ray Minkai. Killigoo slightly glanced sideways, and after glancing at the white figure at the edge of the deep pit, he once again launched an assault. He's really full of energy. Killigoo. The beam of light that shot just now was Lancelot, who had adjusted the Vari's rifle to the newly developed sniper mode. There are no abnormalities in the observation data. The energy output is stable. Target hit. The white cat's tail swayed slightly, and its pair of golden pupils were also staring at the screen. Got it. Looks like the effect is not bad. After we go back, this data should be able to make Dr. Pudding happy for a few days. Ray Minkai slightly raised his gaze and glanced at the data on the screen from the top of the sniper scope. Don't be distracted. Kai. This time, if you want to retreat again, Long Fong Lion will personally take action. The white cat opened its mouth and issued a series of threats. It seemed that the somewhat arrogant white cat was already dissatisfied with the decision to give up on taking back the shards when they were so close. Don't worry, I won't forget about you. As Ray Minkai casually replied, he pulled the trigger again and let Lancelot shoot out 3 beams of light in one breath. The first beam of light, like the previous ones, accurately blew up the enemy that was blocking the green-spectacled hound's path. The second and third beams of light were shot in the other direction, which was the direction where Titania's gray-red earth spider was at. Titania's actions were different from Zilligoo's. She did not choose to rush into the deep pit with Zilligoo. Instead, she silently watched Zilligoo's green-spectacled hound rush out for a distance, and then began to speed up to catch up. Because of this, when Titania saw the enemy's actions clearly, her presence was also exposed to the enemy's eyes. Titania did not know why, but she felt that the attacks on her side were much more than those on Zilligoo's side. This feeling was not unfounded. If Zilligoo's enemies were rated as 3, then Titania's enemies were rated as 10. Therefore, when Titania tried to break through the encirclement, Ray Minkai's support arrived. Wong! Wong! The black-spectacled hounds that attacked the gray-red earth spider from the left and right were immediately shot through by Lancelot's 2 beams of light. Boom! Amidst the violent explosion, the gray-red earth spider that Titania was piloting charged out of the fireball, leaving behind a trail of smoke as it charged towards Zilligoo's area. On the way, the Ats that tried to intercept the gray-red earth spider were all shot down by Lancelot's sniper. Beep beep. The reminder that the magazine was empty rang. Ray Minkai tilted his head slightly, and the fixed sniper scope in front of him was automatically operated as it slowly retracted to the top of the cockpit. Bang! A heavy object landed on the sand with a dull thud. It was Lancelot throwing the emptied Vari's rifle onto the sand. Then, as the racks on both sides of the cockpit rotated, Lancelot's radiation vibrasword was tightly gripped in Lancelot's hands. Now was the time. Earlier, Ray Minkai, Zilligoo, and Titania discussed and decided that Zilligoo and Titania would attract the firepower while Lancelot, who had the ability to fly, would attempt to break through the air to attract the attention of the coffin. However, was the coffin or was Fianna still alive? Ray Minkai and Zilligoo had no way of knowing. Only when Lancelot or the green-spectacled hounds rushed forward would there be a chance to learn the truth. Unfolding his light wings, Lancelot leaped dozens of meters into the air. With a turn, he immediately accelerated toward the circular object in the center of the deep pit, the coffin. Boom, boom, boom. Lancelot's operation did not go smoothly. Although Zilligoo and Titania worked together to attract the enemy's attention, the Ats hovering around the coffin were clearly different from the black-spectacled hounds and spiders outside the deep pit. They immediately raised their heavy machine guns, anti-tank cannons, and even anti-air missiles that had never been used in the plot. In an instant, with the coffin as the center, the area within 100 meters was filled with bullets, artillery shells, and anti-aircraft missiles with smoke trailing behind them. Shwa! With a flash of light, Lancelot's usual radiation energy shield was activated. In the next moment, the densely packed bullets and artillery shells swarmed over like flies that had smelled honey. In a situation where it was unable to break through the defense of the radiation energy shield, it forcefully pushed Lancelot back from the 100-meter-long anti-air firepower net with a powerful impact. TSK. When did it become a tortoise shell? Ray Minkai furrowed his brows. After several attempts, Ray Minkai finally discovered that the Ats surrounding the coffin seemed to be focused on guarding against Lancelot's advance. As soon as Lancelot appeared and was about to rush into the anti-air firepower net, these Ats, even if Zilligoo and Titania were closing in on them, would immediately turn their muzzles and fire an airtight anti-air firepower net at Lancelot. Kai, we are being targeted. I found it. Compared to Zilligu and Titania, the coffin seems to be more afraid of our approach. Ray Minkai glanced at the green-spectacled hounds and gray-red spiders that were about to rush to within 100 meters of the coffin. It's afraid of being eaten by me. After looking at it for a while, the white cat state Zero opened its mouth slightly, revealing a pair of sharp teeth. Afraid? The fragment has developed self-awareness? Ray Minkai was stunned. This was something that he had never heard of before, nor had he ever thought of. No, it's not like that. In the end, it was the white cat state Zero that refuted its own words. No matter what, the battle continued. Seeing that Lancelot was trapped in the airtight anti-air firepower, Zilligu and Titania, who had broken through to about 150 meters away from the coffin, immediately began the next step. The gray-red spider accelerated and overtook Zilligu's green spectacle hounds. At the same time, it raised the machine gun in its hand and fired at the enemy in front of it. In the whistling of the bullets, Titania did not care how many enemies her gray-red spider could hit. She only knew that under her control, the gray-red spider had rushed to within 100 meters of the coffin. Ta-ta-ta-ta. Soon, when the gray-red spider stepped within 100 meters of the coffin, the machine gun in its hand had just emptied all of its ammunition. Right now, the gray-red spider had lost all of its long-range attacks. However, Titania's expression was still calm. Dang! The sound of metal colliding exploded. It was the sound of the gray-red spider smashing the empty machine gun in its hand on the black-spectacled hound whose head armor was still damaged. Then, the gray-red spider swung its right fist. Bang! As the unique sound of the armed punch exploded, the black-spectacled hound, who was pushed back by the gray-red spider's heavy machine gun, was immediately smashed to the ground by the armed punch. Ka! 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 As the black-spectacled hound fell to the ground, the grayish-red earth spider, under Titania's control, used its body as a rolling stone and pushed it back in one go, knocking down 2 or 3 black-spectacled hounds along the way. Zilligu! Titania shouted Zilligu's name as the gray-red spider swung its fists and smashed the black-spectacled hounds that rushed over. The movable wheel spun rapidly, and the green-spectacled hound rushed out from behind the gray-red spider as fast as lightning. When it passed by the gray-red spider, it raised its left hand, and 2 shadows flew toward the gray-red spider. When the gray-red spider reached out and caught the shadows, Titania realized that it was the short-barreled heavy machine gun that the green-spectacled hound had been using. Zilligu, you bastard! Titania glanced at the green-spectacled hound that plunged into the enemy, and once again raised the machine gun and fired a barrage of bullets. In the sky, Lancelot's figure quickly descended. Ray Minkai saw it. Under the impact of Zilligu and Titania, the ats that surrounded the coffin within 100 meters had no time to take care of Lancelot. Even if there was, it wouldn't be as terrifying as before, where the impact of the explosion of bullets and artillery shells forced Lancelot to retreat. Sure enough, the density of the anti-air firepower network decreased. Then, it meant that the opportunity had arrived. With a flash of light wings, Lancelot didn't advance but retreated. After rising more than 10 meters, he extended the light wings behind him to the maximum. Ka! Lei Minkai stretched out his thumb and pressed down hard. Lancelot's light wings suddenly burst out with a dazzling light, pouring down a rain of light that looked gorgeous, but was actually incomparably fatal towards the Epilo. Chapter 270. The violent light rain wantonly shot out from Lancelot's light wings and swarmed toward the ats that were clustered around the coffin. Bang! 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 Under the light rain, whether it was the black-spectacled hound or the earth spider, their armor couldn't withstand the light rain attack from Lancelot. Even if there was a slight change in their armor, it was still easily destroyed by the light rain as if it was a piece of paper. It directly hit the at's energy mechanism. Boom, boom. Wherever the light rained past, there were flying armor fragments. They were all as that were hit by the energy source and fell into a symbiotic explosion. The exploding fireballs were like road signs, pointing the way for Killigoo and Titania, who were on the other side. That mech can actually reach such a level. Titania looked at Lancelot, who had revealed a new trump card, in surprise. Originally, when she saw that Lancelot had the ability to fly that all known-ats didn't have, Titania subconsciously thought that this might be a very powerful KMF body. But in reality, the performance that Lancelot displayed at this time surprised Titania and even Killigoo. Ray Minkai, what a terrifying man. Chiligoo's expression twitched, and he subconsciously said these words. From the first time they met, Zilligoo felt that Lei Minkai seemed to be very familiar with him and knew about him. Lei Minkai even knew about Zilligoo, Fianna, and the other people close to him. Even Titania, who was both his enemy and his friend, was the same. However, no matter what, Lei Minkai's current attitude and actions showed that he was on his side. In that case, Killigoo could determine that Lei Minkai was his comrade. Thoughts flashed through his mind like lightning. Killigoo's eyes moved away from the explosions caused by the light rain and landed on the coffin far away. Moreover, when his eyes fell on the layer of translucent glass on the coffin, an illusion appeared. Fianna was looking at him, just like when she was still alive, staring at him. Fianna. The moment Chiligoo's suppressed roar came out of his throat, the green-spectacled hound exploded with all its strength, brazenly smashing down the earth spider in front of it with one punch. Moreover, the moment the earth spider fell, the green-spectacled hound jumped onto its body, using this earth spider as a stepping stone for the hound to leap high into the air. Da-da-da. The moment the green-spectacled hound leaped high, the bullets fired by the gray-red spider Titania was driving roared as they flew past the green-spectacled hound's feet, turning the ats in front of it into a hornet's nest as they tried to take advantage of the green-spectacled hound's leap to attack. TSK. Bang. Bang. The crisp sound of bullets hitting armor rang out rapidly. At the moment when the rapid music reached its peak, an even louder sound became the accompaniment of the green-spectacled hound soaring into the sky. Boom! As the life-devouring flames swept up, Killigoo calmly adjusted the green-spectacled hound's posture in the air so that it could fly further away. However, bits clustered around the coffin would not just watch the green-spectacled hound fly directly to the front of the coffin. Therefore, even if they were facing the two-sided attack of Lancelot in the sky and the gray-red spider on the ground, the remaining had still surged toward the green-spectacled hound. Numerous black muzzles were pointed at him, missiles that were ready to be fired one after another. This was the situation the green-spectacled hound was facing. Da-da-da! Loud gunshots rang out. Boom! 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 Close to 100 missiles soared into the sky, completely sealing off the space in front of the green-spectacled hound. As long as the green-spectacled hound continued to move forward, it would inevitably end up being shot to death. However, Chiligoo did not retreat because of this, because at the moment when these attacks were about to hit the green-spectacled hound, a black shadow suddenly appeared in front of the green-spectacled hound. Boom! In the blink of an eye, the black shadow that suddenly appeared replaced the green-spectacled hound and became the victim of this hail of bullets. And the green-spectacled hound that should have been sacrificed in this hail of bullets flew out of the billowing smoke and scathed under the guidance of a steel cable. Chiligoo, fly! The moment the steel cable tightened, Ray Minkai pulled hard on the joystick. Lancelot, who was flying in the air, immediately swung with all his might and threw the green-spectacled hound that was tightly grabbing onto the hooked claws even higher into the air, above the coffin. So, the black shadow that suddenly appeared in front of the green-spectacled hound was the pair of hooked claws on Lancelot's waist. At the same time that the pair of hooked claws were ejected, Lancelot, under the control of Ray Minkai, also ejected the hooked claws on his left arm. allowing the green-spectacled hound to catch them. Then, was the scene just now? In the next moment, the green-spectacled hound that was thrown high into the air by Lancelot suddenly descended rapidly and crashed into the enemy like a meteor. At the same time that it smashed an unlucky earth spider into pieces, Chili Gu quickly made the green-spectacled hound snatch the heavy machine gun from the hands of the unlucky earth spider. Da-da-da. Without hesitation, Chili Gu didn't wait for his own plane to stabilize before he immediately raised the heavy machine gun and continuously fired bullet after bullet at the surrounding area. Then, using the cover of the bullet to buy enough time for the plane to stabilize, Chili Gu immediately made the green-spectacled hound move again. This time, it wasn't the green-spectacled hound's solo attack. Instead, Lancelot, who had retracted his light wings, landed behind the green-spectacled hound. At this moment, Ray Minkai and Chili Gu didn't say anything, nor did they send out any signals. However, these two people who had just met not long ago were like a pair of partners that had gone through life and death many times on the battlefield as they simultaneously launched their attacks. The green-spectacled hound's moving wheel, Lancelot's guiding wheel. They both let out a rapid, whirring sound as they pushed these two bodies of similar size to each other back to back as they quickly rotated. As Lancelot and the green-spectacled hound rotated, Lancelot's radiation vibration sword released blood-red sword rays, while the green-spectacled hound's heavy machine gun shot out fatal bullets. Following closely behind Lancelot's sword rays, all the ats in front of them were completely annihilated. Bang! On the other side, it was the gray-red earth spider that had once again found an opportunity to launch a new round of attacks. When Lancelot used his hook to throw the green-spectacled hound higher into the air, Titania decisively opened fire on the gray-red earth spider. Hot bullet shells were thrown out of the launcher and fell into the sand and dust stirred up by the grayish-red earth spider's rapid charge. Although the storm created by the gray-red earth spider looked terrifying, it was still limited by the amount of ammunition. TSK, is there no more ammunition? Titania learned from Ziliku and used the short-barreled heavy machine gun to smash the earth spider pouncing from the right. She once again waved her fists and fearlessly pounced into the team that was mixed with the black-spectacled hound and earth spider in front of her. Right now, the distance between the gray-red earth spider and the coffin was close. As long as Titania could get rid of this annoying earth spider in front of her, she would be able to do so. Suddenly, a wave of uneasiness surged toward Titania like a tide. Titania's instincts that had been trained from fighting back and forth on the battlefield for a long time made her immediately change her movements. She abruptly changed from charging forward to rapidly retreating. At the same time, she did not forget to shout on the communication channel. Ziliku, Ray Minkai, danger! It seems like something is coming this way. Before he finished speaking, countless light spots suddenly appeared in the sky. What ominous specks of light they were. Anyone who saw the dense and silent light spots in the sky would have the same thought. That was because behind these dots of light was the destruction of everything. Missiles. Is it the church? Ziliku. When Lei Minkai saw the densely packed dots of light above his head, he immediately yelled out. The target of these light spots was obviously here. This deep pit. The coffin in the center of this deep pit. There was no time. Although Titania's warning came quickly, the light spots that covered the entire sky came even faster. In just a blink of an eye, Ray Minkai heard the true body of these light spots, the rumbling sound of missiles tearing through the sky. There's not enough time. State 0. Under Ray Minkai's call, Lancelot jumped up again. He raised his hand and popped out the claw on his forearm. He tied up the gray-red earth spider that had rushed to not far away and pulled it hard, pulling it to himself and the green-spectacled hound. Woo! In the next moment, the light spots that covered the sky fell. The densely packed missiles fell from the sky crazily as if they were free. One after another, they smashed into the deep pit and set off a series of violent explosions. Roar. In the midst of the explosions, an even louder roar exploded. Then it was drowned out by the explosions caused by the missiles that fell from the sky. From the moment the missiles fell, this series of explosions were like firecrackers during the new year. There was no sign of it stopping, until a trace of white appeared on the horizon. The light spots in the sky finally disappeared. What was left was the deep pit that had been blown beyond recognition. It was a scene of devastation, almost expanded by several times, and debris all over the ground. The smoke gradually dissipated, and the center of the deep pit that was the focus of attention once again appeared under the sky. The coffin was actually undamaged, even if it had suffered the previous terrifying attack. Crack! A dull sound came from the ground, and the ground on the right side of the coffin was suddenly torn apart. In the midst of the dust, a steel beast that was more than 10 meters tall rushed out from the ground and stood firmly on the bumpy ground. Bah! Kai! Next time, I won't believe your nonsense anymore. You actually want me, the sacred beast of the country, to dig a hole. The giant steel beast opened its mouth unhappily and tried to spit out the non-existent soil in its mouth. At least, we avoided the baptism of the sea of missiles. In the hole behind the giant beast, Lancelot, the green-spectacled dog, and the grayish-red spider came out one after another. The coffin is actually fine. The moment they walked out of the hole that allowed them to escape the baptism of the sea of missiles, Titania saw the undamaged coffin. Hearing this, Ray Minkai and Ziligu both had a strange expression. Ray Minkai was amazed at the sturdiness of the coffin. Kiligu, on the other hand, was surprised, but he also heaved a sigh of relief. Although to Ziligu it was a bit strange, but this was how Ziligu felt at the moment. Titania, can the church do such an attack? Ray Minkai added, with the current church. Titania looked around and looked at the deep hole that was forcefully expanded by several times in the baptism of the sea of missiles. She shook her head. No, the church is already on the decline. Even if they still have enough power, they can't do such a thing. The church's suspicion was denied by Titania. Then, there was only one left, no, maybe two. They were the two empires that were defeated by Ziligu more than 30 years ago. Ray Minkai remembered that when Solitary Shadow reappeared, the empire also sent people to chase after Ziligu. Could it be that the baptism of the sea of missiles was really done by the empire? Suddenly, Ziligu and Titania looked to the other side at the same time. A thunderous sound that tore through the sky rolled over. In the vast horizon, there seemed to be countless black shadows jumping. That is, without needing Ray Minkai's instructions, the long-toothed lion rushed out of the deep hole at the same time and transformed into the high-speed combat Leo mode. The giant blue lion swung its tail. At the end of the tail, the rarely used drone immediately rose into the air and quickly flew towards the black shadows, jumping back and forth in the distant horizon. In less than a few minutes, the drone sent back the images it had detected. It was fine if he didn't see it. Once he saw it, Ray Minkai sucked in a breath of cold air. Ziligu, it seems that you are very popular. According to the drone's preliminary scan, there are at least 1,000 black spectacled dogs coming here. 1,000? How is that possible? The Black Lightning Brigade doesn't have so many airframes. Titania subconsciously denied the information provided by Ray Minkai, but immediately thought of another possibility. Could it be the Empire? I'm afraid that's the case. Ray Minkai smiled bitterly. To be able to attract the attention of the Empire, other than Ziligu, it was probably because of the coffin that fell from the sky. But then again, even with the long-toothed lion, we only have 4 airframes at most. How could the Empire send 1,000? That's over. Unless there is something that the Empire wants but is afraid of. As they spoke, Lei Minkai, Ziligu, and Titania's gazes all landed on the coffin. No, it should be said that they were looking at Fianna's sleeping face. Chapter 271. The cold steel armor reflected the radiance of the rising sun. Helicopters with black spectacled dogs hanging from their abdomens flew across the sky in a neat formation amidst the roar of the propellers stirring the air. Below the helicopters, which numbered at least 100, was the huge army that stirred up bursts of dust as they moved. This was all the power that the Marugi army could send out at great risk. The commander who sent out the army, composed of at least 1,000 black spectacled dogs, had reason to believe that on this planet, where the Mathiara Church was gradually losing control, there would no longer be any power that could threaten them. Even if there was, it would only be a coffin that fell from the sky. What should we do? Although we have taken care of the 250 ats, we now have to face an enemy more than 4 times their number. Although Titania spoke cautiously, one could hear from her voice that this woman, known as the Shield of Order, wasn't afraid of the upcoming battle with great disparity in strength. Ziligu still didn't speak. He just let the green spectacled dog turn around and silently picked up the GAT-22 heavy machine gun that was discarded on the side. He began a new round of inspection and collection of ammunition. Of course, this was the same strategy that Ziligu adopted in the previous battle. Since the ground was already full of wreckage, they might as well collect some usable ammunition and guns from nearby to prepare for the next battle. Ziligu, don't underestimate them. That's thousands of ats. Titania found that Ziligu didn't propose a tactical arrangement as she imagined. When there wasn't even the most basic communication, she couldn't help but scold him. No, Titania, let him be. Now, let Ziligu have some time alone. At this time, after Ray Minkai spoke for Ziligu, he shifted the topic to Titania. Titania, can your body still hold on? Hearing this, Titania's face darkened, but she still nodded. Although the situation is not optimistic, I can still hold on. Ka! While speaking, a GAT-22 heavy machine gun suddenly appeared in front of Titania. Titania took a moment to process it. She subconsciously controlled the gray-red spider to catch the GAT-22 heavy machine gun that appeared in front of her. Check. The ammo is full. Fine. Ray Minkai shrugged as he watched the interaction between Ziligu and Titania. He didn't say anything else. So, Lancelot turned around and jumped, flew to the edge of the deep pit, and landed next to the long-fanged lion. Now, the ad in the deep pit had been blown up. Ray Minkai and the others only had to be on guard against the enemies who were coming this way. Kai, if I want to run away, I can take the coffin with me. State Zero's voice sounded in the private channel. And then, bring the coffin back to our world? Ray Minkai shook his head. That's fine too. After all, we can avoid trouble. No. In doing so, we may become the enemy of Ziragatsubi. This wasn't good. If we let such a bug-like man stand opposite us, I won't be able to sleep. Ray Minkai's attitude was very firm. No matter what, he had to stand on the side of Ziragu's teammate and solve the problem in front of him today. Even if he didn't get Ziragatsubi's friendship, Ray Minkai had to at least get Ziragatsubi's promise. This was a premonition that might be useful one day in the future. Oof. Then let's fight. Although there are about 1,000 of them, what can these short little things do? State Zero raised his head slightly, and the pair of sharp teeth emitted a faint cold light. Behind him, there was a buzzing sound of a spinning wheel. Then the green spectacled dog and grayish-red spider charged out of the deep pit, equipped with machine guns in their hands and waists. They also had missile pods dug out from the thick layer of floating soil. They rushed to Lancelot's side. Ka! The green spectacled dog stretched out his right hand. In his hand were 2 GAT-11 heavy machine guns with short barrels. Although they looked damaged, they could still be used. Thank you, Ziragu. Lancelot is not suitable to use at weapons. Now, this is enough for Lancelot. Ray Minkai smiled slightly. While he sighed that his decision was right, he let Lancelot gesture with the radiation vibrating sword in his hand. With the combination of the radiation vibrating sword and the radiation energy shield, Lancelot's combat power did not decrease because of the lack of long-range weapons. Ziragu, Titania, let's leave the front line to this big guy. You guys are responsible for covering the left and right of the Hunter's Tooth Lion. The two it's piloted by Zilligu and Titania turn the adjustable cameras on their heads in unison, constantly sizing up the huge steel beast standing beside Lancelot. They didn't know how this steel beast had appeared, but they knew that it was this steel beast that had suddenly appeared before the missiles had washed over the ground, saving the two of them by a hair's breadth. Understood. Ziriga nodded. As for Titania, she didn't say anything. In the face of thousands of Ats, if they could have an obvious and powerful teammate as a target, it might be easier for them. You two little ones, keep up with my speed. Seeing that Zirigu and Titania had no objections, the Hunter's Tooth Lion's eyes flashed, and the two plasma propulsion engines on its back suddenly activated. Boom! As the long blazing plasma flame instantly spewed out, the Hunter's Tooth Lion had already rushed 100 meters away. So fast, Zirigu and Titania were shocked, but at the same time, they piloted their own ad and followed. The team combination of the huge steel beast and the short At was thus born. Behind them, Lancelot bent his legs and jumped into the air. Buzz! The light wings on Lancelot's back spread out again. We can leave the ground to State 0 and Zirigu. As for the air, let's leave it to Lancelot. In front of them, the only thing that could threaten Zirigu and Titania was the helicopters in the air. They had to shoot down these helicopters before they attacked the green spectacled dog and the gray-red earth spider. In the huge army, a commander with an obvious logo followed behind the large army unhurriedly under the protection of 20 black spectacled dogs that looked slightly different in appearance. In the command vehicle, in addition to the personnel driving the vehicle and paying attention to the data fed back by the movement of the Ad army, a middle-aged man wearing a Maruk army uniform had a flattering smile on his face. He said to the masked man in a black robe sitting opposite him, "Mr. K, how's our Maruk army?" "Not bad. I didn't expect that you guys would succeed just because we did it on a whim." That's right, that's right. No matter what, the #1 PS is the masterpiece of our Maruk army. Naturally, we can do more than those fools from the church. The middle-aged man nodded and said, "Well, I know that." At this point, the masked man called Mr. K fell silent and ignored the middle-aged man. The only thing that could be felt was his gaze that was always paying attention to the deep pit. The middle-aged man who was trying to curry favor with Mr. K did not know. The masked man he was trying to curry favor with was actually just a newcomer. He was a newcomer from an organization that secretly provided the fragments to the Maruk army. Is it just a breeder farm? This thought suddenly flashed through the masked man's mind. In his eyes, the army in front of him that could casually pull out as many as thousands of it could be said to be one of the top forces in the world in his hometown. Not to mention that the Ats in the fleet of warships in space had not yet been dispatched. This power, this boldness, but it became the organization's breeder farm. It seemed that the water in this world, no, it should be the water in this universe, was deeper than he imagined. Suddenly, a flash of light flashed in the sky. "Commander, someone is coming." Mr. K withdrew his gaze and closed his eyes slightly. "What?" The middle-aged man was shocked and hurriedly shouted, "Turn on all radars. Search the airspace within the detectable range with all your strength. All its inner level 1 combat state." Looking at the arrangement made by the middle-aged man, Mr. K could not help but nod. It seemed that the man in front of him was not incompetent. Under the order, half of the hundreds of helicopters hovering above the Ad army immediately separated. After releasing the black spectacled dogs they carried, they immediately formed an attack formation and rushed out of the formation, flying straight to the airspace locked by the radar. Not long after, the helicopters in the front had already discovered an unknown target that had broken into the Ad army's alert airspace. "Report. Target found." The middle-aged man immediately asked, "Fighter, no." Our helicopters did not answer. "Just wait. We are communicating now." The operator frowned and immediately increased the communication power to the maximum and connected the communication to the external setting. "This is Lars Arnold. Target confirmed. This is At. How is it possible? How can it fly in the sky? So fast. We can't keep up with its speed. Cha! Hanold has been hit. So fast. The enemy's speed is so fast. We can't catch its figure at all. Request fighter support. Request fighter support. The communication from the front made the middle-aged man stunned. And that can fly? What kind of joke is this? The middle-aged man seemed to be unable to keep his face and roared a few times. The operator could only brace himself and show the signal feedback from the front line to the middle-aged man. With this, the middle-aged man became silent. The 50 helicopters sent out actually lost 10 in this short period of time. How is this possible? According to the radar's monitoring, it is just a target. Can you show the image of the front line? Quick, let me see who it is. The middle-aged man thought that his face was slapped, especially when the representative of the partner that was valued by the Maruji first runner-up stood next to him. Yes. However, before the sweating operator could complete this work, the unidentified flying jet broke into the Army's airspace. This time, there was no need for the operator's reminder. The middle-aged man immediately gave the order of full air defense, striving to kill the enemy who gave him a slap in the face in the shortest time possible. However, the vicious middle-aged man didn't know that the man standing next to him revealed a trace of strangeness under the mask. The white gold paint, the familiar, gorgeous patterns on the ice-cold armor, and the pair of gorgeous light wings. With just one look, he could recognize its identity. Lancelot. As he muttered the name in an almost inaudible voice, his eyes that were covered by the mask flashed with a glimmer of light. As expected, the vastness of this world is far beyond my imagination. Let's not talk about how much the masked man was shocked by Lancelot's appearance. At this moment, the sky was Lancelot's battlefield. Under the command of the commander, the remaining helicopters immediately launched into the encirclement of Lancelot after releasing the black, spectacled dogs they carried. They were in groups of 3, with standard combat units as the main force, and with the assistance of the command system, they launched wave after wave of attacks toward Lancelot. In front of him was a machine gun barrage fired by 3 helicopter squads. Lancelot raised his left hand, and the radiation energy shield immediately blocked the barrage. Crackle! In the continuous burst of sparks on the radiation energy shield, 12 helicopters quickly flanked Lancelot from behind and took advantage of the opportunity when Lancelot was restrained by the barrage of friendly aircraft to quickly lock onto Lancelot. Then the rocket attached to the side of the helicopter was launched. Whoosh! Whoosh whoosh! Dozens of tails of smoke swept across the sky and rushed behind Lancelot in the blink of an eye. The next moment, the explosion that was enough to destroy everything swallowed Lancelot in an instant. Rumble, in the billowing flames, there was still a low echoing. Success? Everyone was watching the gradually blooming ball of fire. But the masked man knew that Lancelot would not be blown up so easily. Roar! At this moment, the roar of a ferocious beast that resounded through the sky suddenly sounded, and an azure lightning bolt appeared from the horizon in front without warning. In the blink of an eye, it had already plunged into the formation formed by thousands of black spectacled hounds. Boom! This azure lightning did not stop. Instead, its speed increased by 30%, as if it was going to set off a storm in the formation of the black spectacled hounds that was enough to overturn all of them. In fact, that was the case. Wherever the azure lightning passed, a huge gust of wind was stirred up without exception, and most of the black spectacled hounds that had yet to react were directly overturned to the ground. A large number of black spectacled hounds fell along the path of the azure lightning like falling dominoes. It was not until the azure lightning circled around the formation of the black spectacled hounds that they were barely able to get out of the predicament of being overturned by the gust of wind. However, in front of this large group of black spectacled hounds that were overturned, the azure lightning finally revealed its true appearance. One had a huge steel lion. Roar! Another lion's roar resounded through the sky. Chapter 272. Under the morning sun, the steel lion in blue armor looked down at the army below the hillside. At this moment, in the eyes of this steel lion, the army, which could destroy a large city for most ordinary people, was as ridiculous as a kitten. Lion, lion, how is this possible? How can there be such a huge lion in this world? The huge figure of the predator lion and the low roar that sounded like thunder made the black-spectacled dogs near it subconsciously take a few steps back, especially for the pilots sitting in the cockpit of the black-spectacled hound. Under the zoomed-in lens of the eye patch, they could clearly see the cold, golden eyes of the predator's long-toothed lion. Panic immediately surged like a tide. What? How is this possible? Our empire has never made such a huge thing? What is this? A huge weapon? A biological weapon? The middle-aged man also looked at the predator lion on the screen in a daze. In his knowledge, whether it was the empire's sworn enemy, or even the Mathiara church that ran rampant in the entire Milky Way, there had never been news of such a huge weapon. The predator lion. Just when the members of the Empire army, including the middle-aged man, were shocked by the appearance of the predator lion, the masked man, named Mr. K, standing next to him slowly, said a name. The predator lion? Mr. K, do you know the name of this huge weapon? The middle-aged man seemed to have caught a life-saving straw at this moment and quickly walked off the stage according to Mr. K's words. Mr. K nodded slowly. I know a little. This lion's name is the predator lion. Hee. But then again, this is the first time I've seen it appear with my own eyes. Commander, if I were you, I'd better withdraw now. Mr. K smiled and made a suggestion that made the middle-aged man somewhat tempted but unacceptable. The middle-aged man's expression changed, but in the end, he did not choose the masked man's suggestion, because he knew that if he retreated under the threat of this huge weapon of unknown origin without even getting close to the coffin, what awaited him would be an internal investigation from the Empire. That would be an investigation that would be enough to destroy his family and kill him. Everyone attack. Whether it's the helicopter unit or the Cobra dogs, I don't care what you do. Use all your ammunition and fire at that monster. In an instant, this command was undoubtedly an all-out attack. It immediately pushed the black-spectacled hounds, who had just shown signs of retreating, to the opposite side of the long-toothed lions. Attack, attack! A black-bespectacled canine captain gritted his teeth and took the lead to launch the first attack at the Orion lion. His forehead was covered in cold sweat, and his forehead was full of cold sweat. Da-da-da-da. The roar of the machine gun tore through the air, becoming the first sound of the battle. However, before this squad leader's attack could become the bugle horn to summon the entire army to attack, the target he wanted to attack suddenly disappeared before his eyes. Oh, in the blink of an eye, the wind blew. Then, there was a loud sound of metal clashing. Bang! The roar of the machine gun stopped abruptly. At the same time, under the gaze of many black-spectacled hounds, the black-spectacled hound piloted by the squad leader who launched the first attack turned into fragments and scattered messily on the desert under his feet. And the culprit that turned the squad leader's black-spectacled hound into fragments was the Orion lion that suddenly rushed in front of him. With just one claw, the black-spectacled hound was like a toy block piled up by a child. It easily disintegrated and turned into flying flowers. Monster! At this moment, the panic quickly spread among the pilots who witnessed the black-spectacled hound squad leader being smashed into pieces. As the panic grew, some people chose to use all their strength and try to kill the Orion lion that easily smashed the black-spectacled hound into pieces. Da-da-da-da, dong, dong, dong. Heavy machine gun, anti-tank gun, or the rocket launcher on the shoulder, they crazily poured towards the European hunting lion. However, not a single bullet, cannonball, or even rocket managed to hit the Panther lion. Before the barrage of bullets could reach the Orion lion turned around and turned into lightning again. It left the place and rushed to the flank of the black-spectacled hound. So fast, Sir, our attacks can't hit that monster. Uh, help! Don't come over! Crack! Monster! Monster! Come on! Ah! In just a few minutes, the entire communication channel was filled with calls for help, screams, and begging for mercy. The middle-aged man's forehead was already covered in cold sweat. As the struggle on his face became more and more obvious, he gritted his teeth. Helicopter unit, what are you doing? Go support the black-spectacled hounds. Rumble. In the sky, there was a rumbling sound of propellers stirring the air. The helicopter unit that arrived late finally caught up with the Orion Lion's speed when the morale of the black-spectacled hound was about to be destroyed. Dong, dong, dong. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. As soon as dozens of helicopters captured the movement trajectory of the Orion Lion, they immediately launched a fierce attack from the top to the bottom. Their attack was not comparable to that of the black-spectacled hounds. Compared to the black-spectacled hounds on the ground, who had to worry about avoiding hitting their teammates, these helicopters soaring in the sky were much more reckless. Because, in their field of vision, in addition to the Orion Lion, there were only the black-spectacled hounds that had been smashed and scattered by the Orion Lion. Dang, 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 dang. The bullets fired by the helicopters finally hit the Orion Lion's blue armor, but they only produced meaningless sparks. They did not penetrate the Orion Lion's armor at all, and there was no sign of shattering it. The rockets that followed were not as lucky as the bullets. The Orion Lion only made a slight and rapid turn, causing the many rockets fired by the helicopter unit to miss. They fell to the ground and exploded helplessly. What's going on? What a hard armor. Hey, split into two teams and surround it. The captain of the helicopter unit frowned and immediately issued an order that was in line with the current situation. However, this order was not carried out because the moment the helicopter unit separated, two black shadows descended from the sky without warning and directly blew up the pilot plane that took the lead to separate and surround it. Boom! In the midst of the explosion of fire, a pair of light wings quietly spread out. How is this possible? Isn't that the airframe that was blown up by our helicopter unit? How can it still appear on the battlefield alive and kicking? The middle-aged man's eyes were about to pop out. With the appearance of Lancelot and the Orion Lion one after another, he realized that the situation in front of him was not as easy as he and even the upper echelons of the Maruji clan had imagined. While they were self-righteous and arrogant, a factor that was enough to affect the development of the entire situation quietly grew to the point where it could change the entire situation. It was like, back then, the untouchable person named Ziligachobi had appeared out of thin air. The hooked claw attacked across the sky. The light wings flapped. Every time the radiation vibration sword slashed, it represented the fall of a helicopter. All of this was seen by Mr. K's eyes. So strong, stronger than before. Lancelot. Mr. K's gaze moved away from Lancelot, who was rampaging among the helicopter unit, and fell on the Orion Lion, who was wreaking havoc among the army of black-spectacled hounds in the same way. One helicopter, one lion. Although they are very powerful, they can't defeat this army in a short time. Moreover, as long as this incompetent man slightly remembers the qualities that a commander should have, then the attack from the rear will probably fall from the sky. The eyes under the mask flickered a few times, and suddenly, a sharp light burst out. Yes, I see. There was no doubt that Mr. K had guessed a possibility. However, when Mr. K's gaze turned to the middle-aged man's face, which was covered in sweat, he fell silent. Forget it. This man doesn't deserve my reminder. Just treat it as a greeting gift for our reunion. The masked man secretly laughed in his heart. Even if you don't know of my existence. Ray Minkai, sir, the helicopter unit has lost all signals. Our helicopters have all been destroyed. What? How long has it been? It hasn't even been 10 minutes, and dozens of our helicopters have been destroyed? Who the hell is this guy? Instinctively, the middle-aged man looked at the silent masked man, Mr. K, commander, I'm only here on behalf of the organization to deal with the harvest. As for the current situation, as a technician, I can't give any effective advice." Mr. K naturally knew what the middle-aged man was thinking, but he did not want to get involved in this mess, especially when he realized that the person standing opposite him was a familiar machine, a steel beast, and even the Night Protector. Mr. K, the mysterious masked man, immediately wanted to retreat. "But Mr. K, if this continues, the cooperation between the Empire and your organization will be in danger." "Danger?" A few laughs came from under the mask. Mr. K said nonchalantly, "Commander, you're exaggerating. The cooperation between our organization and the Empire is not what you think. It's just a failure. We still have another chance, don't we? Now, what you need to do is to gather as much information as possible about these unknown enemies." After that, Mr. K said, "This is the only advice I can give from my position. Commander, it's up to you to decide what to do." In fact, the middle-aged man did not have much time to think. In the sky, Lancelot, who had destroyed all the helicopters, was now free to cooperate with the rampaging European lion on the ground to harvest the black spectacled dogs around it. If the battle went on a little longer, the command vehicle that the middle-aged man and Mr. K were in would be exposed to the sharp claws of the steel lion. If that happened, it would be extremely dangerous. All of a sudden, an urgent report came from the rear, and the middle-aged man finally made a decision. "Her report. There's a battle in the rear, and we've been attacked by the enemy. We've suffered heavy losses, and the number of enemies is unknown." "Unknown number? What the hell are you doing? The Empire spent a lot of money to feed you. How can you be so useless?" After the middle-aged man vented all his pent-up anger and panic by yelling, he looked at Mr. K while panting heavily. "I'm afraid this is a diversionary tactic." Mr. K smiled and said with a hint of flattery, "I'm sure the commander has already guessed it. The commander should have a plan for what to do next." The middle-aged man looked at Mr. K's mask and sighed heavily. "Pass down the order. Take turns covering the retreat. Don't get caught up in the battle. Commander, this is the right choice. When we get back, I'll report this to the organization. I believe the Empire won't make things difficult for you." "I hope so." At this moment, behind the Marugi army of black spectacled dogs, the green spectacled dogs and the grayish-red spiders covered each other and formed a crossfire formation as they charged into the midst of the black spectacled dogs. The enemy is retreating. Killigoo, be careful." Titania immediately noticed a change in the surroundings and instinctively warned Killigoo. Yes, the green spectacled dog that Killigoo was piloting waved its fist and smashed the black spectacled dogs down from the sand dune. It stopped on the sand dune and silently watched the black spectacled dogs in groups of 2 or 3 as they took turns covering the retreat formation. Further behind the black spectacled dogs was the battlefield where the steel lion and Lancelot were. "We won." Killigoo retracted his gaze from the battlefield and looked at the direction of the coffin. If the enemy didn't come back in the next period of time, then there should be enough time to place Fianna's coffin. Compared to Killigoo and Titania, Ray Minkai, who had control of the air, was the first to discover the enemy's retreat. State 0, the enemy is retreating. So what? It seemed that it had been too long since he came out in his lion form. State 0 seemed to have gotten to his head. He seemed to be indifferent to Ray Minkai's reminder. Find the enemy's commander, so that he won't come back and cause trouble. Ray Minkai pushed his hand, and Lancelot's light wings suddenly moved. Lancelot flew 100 meters away and began to search for the enemy's headquarters. However, the enemy's movements were very fast. In the rolling sand, Ray Minkai didn't seem to find any worthy targets. They ran away so quickly, just as Lancelot was looking around but was unable to find any valuable targets. A very strange target suddenly appeared on Lancelot's infrared radar. Without hesitation, Lancelot's light wings flapped and shot out countless light rain, directly covering the strange target. Da-da-da-da. The dense light rain flashed, and a series of explosions rumbled, engulfing all the targets in the area covered by the light rain. The sound waves rumbled. The violent wind set off by the explosion blew up countless yellow sand. In the distance, a pair of eyes hidden under a mask retracted their gaze. Thank you, Ray Minkai. Chapter 273. Roar. The sun once again shone on the desert and burned the desert. The huge steel lion raised its mighty head and roared towards the heavens and earth. Another roar symbolizing the victory. The battle was over. After the area where the commander was suspected to be was covered by the light range shot by Lancelot, the remaining black spectacled dogs immediately fell into a state of chaos and fled in all directions. It's over. This was the sigh of Barnilla, who had risked his life to run over from Geel City to check the situation after the battle ended. Perhaps he had imagined how Killigoo would go on a killing spree and get rid of the Black Lightning Brigade that had come to offend Jeffrey City. However, he had never imagined that this battle, which he had thought would be a 1-3 battle, would turn into a 1-1 battle with a 1-4 battle with a 1-1 disparity in strength. Moreover, the huge steel lion standing in the center of the deep pit did not look like an artifact that could be created by the Empire or the Church. Barnilla, you came just in time. Just as Barnilla was lying on the edge of the deep pit and looking towards the center of the coffin, Ray Minkai had already discovered his existence. Not long after, Barnilla stood in front of the coffin in surprise and stared blankly at Fianna, who was sleeping in the coffin forever. You're saying that all these things were caused by Fianna? Killigoo was silent and only looked at Ray Minkai, and Titania was the same. Among all the people present, only Ray Minkai knew what happened before. First of all, the Black Lightning Brigade should have nothing to do with the coffin. Otherwise, from the beginning, the enemy we would have to face would not be as simple as the black spectacled dogs. Ray Minkai slightly glanced sideways and found that the long-fanged lion had turned back into a white cat and circled around the coffin a few times. But Ray Minkai did not ask. After the coffin fell, the Black Lightning Brigade, including the Church's troops that were chasing Titania, should have been wiped out in an instant. Otherwise, there wouldn't be an empty station that started up for no reason. Hearing Ray Minkai's words, Barnilla was stunned. He subconsciously looked around at the wasteland that was filled with the remains of the black spectacled hounds and earth spiders. It seemed that Barnilla was a little afraid that these corpses that should have been dead would suddenly jump up. They're completely dead. Don't worry. Vanilla. Ray Minkai smiled and looked at State Zero, the white cat that had jumped to the top of the coffin. How is it? State Zero. The white cat, State Zero, squinted its eyes slightly and lay on top of the coffin. Its slender tail was swaying slowly at this moment. There are two ways. The white cat State Zero gestured with its paws and said slowly under Barnilla's surprised gaze. He spoke. Cat, little brother Kai, your cat spoke. While Vanilla was surprised, he did not forget to look at the calm faces of Xylagu and Titania. Xylagu, your cat spoke. But the surprised Vanilla realized that Xylagu was not surprised that the white cat, State Zero, could speak. Instead, he was wondering why Vanilla was so surprised. This was the message that Vanilla read from Xylagu's calm eyes. Sigh. All right, I really can't compare to you guys. Continue speaking. Master Cat. In the end, Vanilla was defeated by Xylagu and Titania, who were so careless that they could almost ignore everything that went against common sense. Are you surprised that I can speak? Human, there are many secrets in this world that you can't touch. The white cat, State Zero, mocked Vanilla a little and continued to gesture with its paws. The first way, then let me take out the fragments buried in this woman's body. But if I do so, this woman's body will probably disintegrate on the spot and disappear from this world. As soon as the white cat finished speaking, a murderous aura suddenly rose. Hey, I haven't finished speaking. Don't be in a hurry to kill me. Although you can't kill me. After all, no matter how strong your fate is, you can't kill the world. The white cat, State Zero, laughed and was not disturbed by Xylagu's murderous aura at all. Continue speaking. State Zero. When the white cat, State Zero, said the first way, Ray Minkai had already guessed what the next way was. In the end, this might be the tacit understanding between Ray Minkai and the white cat. As long as Ray Minkai slightly expressed his thoughts, the white cat, State Zero, might cooperate with him tacitly. Right now, it wasn't the same. The white cat, State Zero, gently lowered its paws. The sharp claws hidden in the thick meat pads slowly scraped the layer of cold metal surface under its paws. I know you guys want to save this woman. Therefore, the second way is to bring this coffin back to our hometown and let our researchers study how to liberate this woman while deciphering the technology on it. As soon as the white cat, State Zero, finished speaking, Xylagu and Titania's sharp eyes simultaneously looked at Ray Minkai. At this moment, it was undoubtedly the time for Xylagu and Titania to speak frankly. The two of them, who had always been suspicious of Ray Minkai's intentions, finally understood Ray Minkai's goal. Of course, this was what Xylagu and Titania thought. Your target is Xylagu? Titania spoke first. Her gaze became sharper, as long as Ray Minkai admitted this point on the spot, she would immediately kill Ray Minkai. Don't be nervous. Titania, your body can't take much of the impact anymore. As soon as Ray Minkai saw the undisguised killing intent in Titania's eyes, he immediately spread out his hands to show that he had no ill intentions. Then, Ray Minkai didn't care if Titania responded to his words. He turned his head to look at the silent Xylagu. Xylagu Chubi, someone who cannot be contacted. As long as you still exist in this world, you and the people around you will be attacked and even hunted down because of this name. Without a doubt, this resounding reputation is a curse for you. As he spoke, Ray Minkai noticed something different in Xylagu's calm gaze. He seemed to be wavering. Xylagu, if this world curses you, then how about going to New World? One where no one else knows you except me. Needless to say, knowing the reputation, curse, and even sin you carry. As he said this, Ray Minkai raised his head slightly and looked at the white cat, State Zero. Moreover, this big block, and Fianna, who is sleeping inside, I may have a way to solve it. Also, I can solve the problem of her and Titania. At the same time, Ray Minkai straightforwardly pointed out Xylagu and Titania's current situation. Time passed bit by bit. Barnilla opened his mouth a few times, but he realized that no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't say a word. He could only silently look at Xylagu, who was standing beside the coffin, thinking about something. Is what you said true? After a long silence, Titania spoke first. Indeed, Titania had reached the end of her life. Although she didn't end up dying in the chaotic battle like in the original novel, where she finally died in Xylagu's arms, the scythe of the Grim Reaper hanging above Titania's head was still about to chop off Titania's neck. You can only trust me, Titania, Ray Minkai said lightly. Titania was silent. In order to continue living, she didn't hesitate to take the risk of being hunted down and went through all the research centers of the church's surviving warriors. Therefore, Titania could be said to have made a choice. Now it was up to Xylagu. Xylagu slowly raised his head, walked to the side of the coffin, and reached out his hand to touch the glass, as if he was caressing Fianna's sleeping face. I'll go. A simple and calm answer. Pa. In the darkness, a light lit up, exposing a man standing in the darkness to everyone's sight. The man's face was mainly black, and his expression was neither sad nor happy. His body was covered in a black robe. Mr. K, although you're a newcomer to the organization, you failed your first mission, causing our organization's precious sample to fall into the hands of the enemy. What are you thinking about this, Sin? In the darkness, a thunderous voice rolled out, constantly echoing in this pitch-black space. Meritorious service will be rewarded, and mistakes will be investigated. That's all. The masked man's voice didn't change at all. It was still calm. Meritorious service will be rewarded, and mistakes will be investigated. Since you've said so, then we'll do as you wish. As soon as the thunderous voice fell, the pitch-black space in front of the masked man was suddenly torn apart by cracks. Ka! As the dense, wandering cracks rapidly spread, the pitch-black space in front of the masked man shattered. In a mirage that seemed to be refracted by glass, a staircase appeared. The staircase, supported by countless gears, appeared one by one in front of the masked man, and it continued to extend forward until it connected with the light spot that appeared in the sky. On the side of the staircase, supported by countless gears, there were countless knight figures holding sharp swords erected. Mr. K, if you still want to join the organization and still want to use your real name to inherit your legacy, then step on this staircase and become our comrade. Buzz, buzz! A buzzing sound rang out, and the countless gears supporting the flight of stairs immediately began to revolve. The masked man knew that as long as he stepped on this staircase, he would definitely be crushed by the countless gears if his footsteps were not steady. Moreover, the masked man's gaze moved up and looked at the knight figures holding sharp swords. This was also a weapon that could inadvertently launch a fatal blow. I suggest that you don't take this path. It's just a mere loss. Suddenly, a voice that the masked man was familiar with, but full of hatred, sounded. Dr. Zasali. The masked man muttered the name of the man who appeared beside him in a low voice. That's me. Your Majesty, please welcome back. Inadvertently, the man in the white coat who appeared in front of the masked man bowed respectfully to him. I'm not your Majesty. The masked man glanced at the man in the white coat, and then continued to look at the staircase that led to the sky. Your Majesty, this is the staircase of 7 words. As long as you successfully climb this staircase, you will become one of the 7 knight of our organization. Your Majesty, have you thought it through? Dr. Zasali's voice became lower and lower. The masked man was silent, but he resolutely took a step forward and walked to the front of the staircase. If I hadn't thought it through, I wouldn't have taken the initiative to come here. Zasali turned around and looked at the masked man's back with a smile, but he didn't say anything. Only when he saw the masked man raise his hand and take off the emotionless mask on his face did he reveal a trace of surprise. Your Majesty, it seems that you've made your decision. No, I'm not your Majesty. I'm just a pitiful person who wants to find his sister. Clang! The emotionless mask was casually thrown to the ground by the man. Then, the man raised his right foot and slowly but firmly stepped on the first step of the staircase. At this moment, a female scream suddenly sounded. Wait, Lucio, what do you want to do? In the midst of the scream, a girl in a black dress with long green hair, scattered messily, rushed out from the darkness. The man stopped and smiled slightly. Hee hee, I was wondering who it was. So it's you. Cici, Lucio. What are you trying to do? Even if it's to find Lena, you don't have to go to this extent. Do you think Lena will forgive you after you find her? C quickly walked past Dr. Zasali and rushed to the man's side. Probably not. Although a trace of frustration flashed in his eyes, the man's eyes still flashed with determination. But there are some things that must be done, and I must do them. Cici, do you still remember our contract? Now is the time for me to fulfill the contract. The man turned his head and reached out to stroke the messy hair by C's ear, then resolutely turned around and stepped on the staircase that extended upwards in front of him, called the staircase of 7 words. Ta! The man's footsteps landed steadily on the first step. C's eyes widened slightly. She knew that the man in front of her could no longer be stopped. The only thing that could stop him was perhaps death. Dr. Zasali, who was standing further behind, bowed slightly to the man who stepped on the staircase of 7 words. Ka! The second step. The moment the man stepped on the second step of the staircase, the bust of the knight standing on both sides of the staircase immediately trembled. Sharp swords. The swords in their hands also began to tremble. It was as if they wanted to erase from this world the rude person who dared to step on this staircase and offend the staircase of 7 words. Seeing this, the young man in a black robe, named Lucio, slightly raised the corner of his mouth and loudly cursed the curse in his heart. The world is the shell, we are the chicks, that you're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.